I know you can be probably doing something more fun on a Friday afternoon, but I think this is a very, very important topic. And obviously, the RPA is one of the key elements to help you get more escrows and close more deals and get paid a commission. So without further ado, let me just share a little bit of me before I actually get into the meat and potatoes of the purchase agreement. So if you don't know who I am, I'm Simon Casares. I am the team leader / broker of record for KW South Bay. Everyone know that?
No.
No, right?
Now we do.
No, that's a new disclosure.
And the most interesting man in the world.
The most interesting man in the world. Thank you. That was after the fact. I've been in real estate for 25 years. I've been in your shoe. You know, I started back in the mid-90s, 1996 to be exact. I was a salesperson for 3 years, then decided to go back to school, go into real estate management certification, got my certification, and decided, what if I go and get my broker's license? So went and studied, got my broker's license. In late 1999, I think, or 2000, I failed the broker license my first time around. I didn't pass the first time I took the broker exam. And guess what? Passing score for a broker was 75%. Wow. Here's what I scored, 74.
I know.
74. So I either missed it by 1 or 2 questions. I was devastated. I was mad. I was a little discouraged as well. But ultimately, back then, it's a whole different dynamics than now. We had scantrons back in the day. So here's what we could do. You could actually cheat a little bit, kind of look over your next door neighbor and see A, B, C, D.
And that's what you did?
And that's exactly what I did not do. I could have. You know, I'm all about ethics and compliance.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we submitted the paperwork and had another test date. Took the test date. For some reason, I thought the first time I took the broker exam, I was so confident that I passed it. And obviously, I did not. I got a 74. So when I took it the second time, I was doubting myself big time. And when I finished, I go, you know what? I think I failed. I really truly believe that I failed. And on December 24th, I got the letter. Because back then, it's not now. They don't give you the letter as soon as you pass. Here it is. Don't open it. Wait till you go outside. What do? Immediately open it. And we know the results, right? Back then, it took about a month and a half to get the results. I get the letter, my heart is pounding. And I'm like, I was really scared to open it. I opened it up, the first thing I see, congratulations. I became a broker. So can I get an applause? I just want the engagement. So yeah.
What was your score?
I don't remember. It doesn't tell you your score. It just says you passed. They do tell you the score when you fail. Yes, question.
Did you cheat the second time or?
I did not cheat the second time. I could have, but I didn't. So I was super excited, super stoked. Now I could see some opportunities. I always had it in myself that I wanted to be an owner of my own real estate company. I have a broker's license. I have the capability to do so. I was clueless. I didn't know anything, but I knew I had the heart and the desire that I wanted to be a business owner. So back in the early 2000s, I was on the hunt. I was thinking of names that I can relate to that is about me and my real estate company. Then a location, where can I have my establishment to start growing this mega real estate company that I truly want? Well, I found a location in the city of Santa Fe Springs. If you guys know where Santa Fe Springs is, out there in the east side, the 605 freeway by Whittier. La Habra, La Mirada County, and all that fun area. Found a location and put it established. I had the name, it was called Fast Track Realty. Fast Track Realty. And track was not spelled the way it's spelled. I had it TRAC. And the reason I had it spelled that way is because someone else had already Fast Track Realty. Now, the address that I had was 14111 Freeway Drive, Suite 300. It's out of Bay Springs. So it just makes sense. Fast Track, Freeway Drive. It was like perfect. Now, some of the agents make fun of me because it's like, then it was okay, but today Fast Track doesn't make any sense. But anyhow, so started, I had 3 people with me. It was me and 2 others that believed in me and the big vision that I wanted to establish. I was in my 20s, but I had that goal and I wanted to succeed at this and started going at it. Again, no prior experience, didn't even have Keller Williams behind me, so I didn't have the models and the systems. I just had the heart and the desire to do something that I know can really scale me to different places. So I started chipping away, and little by little, just started growing and growing and growing. By the time I got to the peak of my career was in 2003, 2004, what started as 2 agents, myself as the broker, ultimately 25 sales associates. Bravo. Recruit. And it wasn't really recruiting. It's just because I was so embedded in the community, people started noticing who this Simon was. And little by little, I started to really impact a lot of families, helping them buy, helping them sell, and making me and helping me take myself to that next level of my career. Then I started getting into more of the flip, the investments. Okay, so I kind of transitioned because income was coming in. And that was fun when I was getting these commission checks for me and also my associates. So now I started kind of venturing into flipping property, buying those, selling, making a profit, right? We all heard that. So that's what the niche. And in 2003, all the way up into 2007, it was like this. Property was just going bananas, right? And lenders were just approving the loans. Okay, they were just literally approving the loans. If you didn't have the income, we'll create a second property. I kid you not. So you know this. Lenders were so lean when it came to, because they were also hungry. Now, interest rates back then were around 5 to 7%. Okay, in the early 2000s. But the banks and the lenders were approving loans when borrowers shouldn't have been approved. We were fine with that, or fine with that, because we were getting borrowers qualified for loans. So we were going out there and finding properties. But then 2008, famous 2008. And if you've been in the industry in 2008, you know where I'm going with this. Again, I was at the peak of my career, had a humming functional real estate company. I was the CEO, broker of the company. Income was going really well. My personal life was phenomenal. I was married. I had 2 stepdaughters. Everything was good. I had bought a place out in La Habra Heights. If anyone knows where La Habra Heights is, it's up in the hills somewhere in the San Gabriel Valley. And I paid a lot of money for it because I was able to with these phenomenal lenders that were approving me. I shouldn't have been approved. But I did. I got approved. And to my surprise, a substantial amount. So I said, okay, I'll make it up somehow, some way, close more deals, close more flips. It's golden. It's okay. I got this. I can do this. Well, you know that in 2008, that was not the case. And little by little, property just started collapsing. I had some properties in escrow, the banks kind up the bells, canceled, literally canceled. We didn't have the means and the funds anymore. That ultimately what was here went into a backslide. And property value was dipping. It got so bad that we were all confused because we didn't understand what was going on. It's gonna be okay, we'll make it up doing this, we'll make it up. That was my motto, that was my way of thinking. But that didn't work. And ultimately, I was literally pulling out my wallet, pulling out my credit cards, and paying for obligations. I was paying groceries. I was paying utilities with credit cards because I was not making any money during that time. I still had a business. I still had obligations at home. I had a wife. I had stepdaughters. I had a mortgage. I had toys. And the wife at the time thought everything was peachy and fine. She still wanted to live that lifestyle. And I was trying to prove as a man that I could do it. But unfortunately, the law was saying something totally different. I maxed out all my credit cards. My bank accounts were all gone. My real estate investments were pretty much in limbo. I didn't know really what was a short sale until that year. It's like, is when the bank is willing to take the property that is less than what's owed. It was a whole different dynamic for me at the time. And then ultimately, my agents said, I cannot continue doing this. I got to go find a job. I just cannot make ends meet because sales was just a tough time that year. So I had to make drastic changes. I went into a depression, okay? And I'm going to be honest with you. I want to keep it very transparent because I humble myself each and every day. I humble myself because I've lived through that experience. I know exactly what happened to me and a lot of people in that era. There was people committing suicide, and I'm not trying to make it, anything sympathetic here, but I'm just speaking the truth. That I lost colleagues that were even at a higher scale than I was. I was a little guy in the big pool of real estate, and it impacted me very deep. And I got into a very deep depression. And ultimately, my relationship with the wife also impacted because I could not continue living that lifestyle. And then we finally divorced. So I knew because I was always driven, I've always wanted to be a business owner. I started taking action. And I said to myself, I got to kick myself in the rear and not let this happen to me. What is going on with you, Simon? So I went back to the basic formula, the basic fundamentals, and just started prospecting again. I thought I am a CEO of my own real estate company. That's for the agents, not for Simon, the CEO broker. I don't lead generate. But it was a kick in the rear that ultimately said, wake up, Simon. No one is there to pick you up and give you the financial stability that you need to continue this so-called life. Chase, or there was another name I was going to call it, but I did. So I started prospecting, I started lead generating, I started doing open houses, I started doing everything that I knew originally as a salesperson to get me where I needed to be. And things started happening. Okay. By this time I was already divorced and just doing what I needed to do. I still had my real estate company, but it was just me, myself, and I. No one else. I didn't want to give up on that dream of ownership of my own business. So it was just me working. And I just kept plugging away. Then I met wife number 2.
Be a long day.
I'm gonna cut it really short. I want you to kind of know me a little bit. Now that I have you guys in person, I'm just at awe that you're all here. I see you all on Zoom. But to physically see you in person just makes my day. It just melts my heart. I just want to be honest with you. So this is why I want to share my story. Is that okay?
We're hanging now.
You're stuck.
What's happening now?
Okay, you're stuck. If you like it. So man,
We're all your therapists.
I'm a therapist for a lot of you, so now you're going to be a therapist for me. Thank you. Thank you. Question? I'm going to make it real brief, guys. I promise you. Once we get into the contract, I'm going to make it quick. This is really the four elements of the contract that are the most important of the entire RPA. So we'll breeze through that, okay? I only said 3 hours just to have you come in. It's like, oh my gosh, it's going to be a great class. It's very dry material. Okay? Very dry material. So met wife number 2, and I was at awe. It's like, wow, this is awesome. You know, and I started building momentum in my real estate, doing a lot of sales again. And ultimately, it was my second wife who put a pillar in my head and said, look, with all the years of experience you already have, about 10 years, why don't you do something for yourself and see about going into management? I haven't thought about that. It's like, I'm going backwards. I run my own real estate company. Why would I now become a manager or a team leader, right? But it makes sense because I still had a lot of obligations. Okay, and I'm keeping it real. So she put a pillar in my head. So that's when I started submitting resumes. And I was living at the time in Chino Hills. You guys know where Chino Hills, that's in San Bernardino County. It's about 62 miles one way from this location. And I'll tell you why I know all this. Because I submitted my resume here for my previous predecessor, Jackie Mitchell. And I get a call like the following day. Hey, we received your resume and love the opportunity to meet with you in person. Can you come to Torrance? Now, what was so funny and so ironic was that the broker position said we're looking for a broker that is within 5 miles of the office. I just said I was 62 miles away. But I also want you to understand persistence. I also want you to understand driven. I also want you to understand the importance of pushing forward. We all have our challenges. We all have our ups and downs. We're going to have good days, and we're also going to have bad days. I didn't get all this gray hair from having good days. I'm just keeping it real. Okay? So the essence of what we do on a daily, the grunt, the grind, perseverance, but also the attitude and really the mindset, right? And I've shared with you on our Zoom calls the importance. We got to be self-motivated each and every day. Because this industry can eat you, swallow you, spit you out. I'm keeping it real. All right? We've had battles. Okay? And I've dealt with a lot of the battles with our office. Perseverance every single day. So I said, yeah, no problem. I will meet with you. Met with the team leader here. This is before all this. The office looked a lot worse than what it looks like now. I come in here, it's like, oh, this is a real estate office? I was kind of used to what I had, you know, instead of experience. So I met with the team leader and we had an instant connection. There was a chemistry, literally a chemistry. And we didn't talk anything about my resume or my experience. It was just life. And I walked away after an hour and 30 minutes thinking, gosh, we didn't even talk about the role. I don't even know what the compensation, I don't know anything. So I said, okay, maybe I did not get the position. I get another call the following day from the team leader. And she says, you know, there's something about you that just resonates with me. And I want to give you the opportunity, if you like, to be the broker for this company that will release bonds. I was excited. It's like, this is my first like real job in real estate, other than being my own brokerage. So without even thinking, I said, okay, I'll take it. We had, I don't know, about 350, 400 associates back then. And I was like, what did I get myself into? Literally, because I did not have the experience to handle that many associates. I knew real estate, I knew the process, but I didn't know what I got myself into. And man, oh man, was it an eye opener for me, because immediately the day that I started, I got slapped with 4 lawsuits on my desk from the previous broker. Here you go, have fun, congratulations, bye. So I had to deal with, it's like, what the heck did I shit myself into? I still don't know what my pay is, by the way. I'm just going with the flow.
Still been the best broker we've ever had.
Thank you, thank
The
you,
best, that's sure, that's for sure.
thank you. I really appreciate that. So went in, started rolling up my sleeves and just start little by little chipping away. I always talk about chipping away because the importance of real estate is communications. Okay, if you want to write this down, please. Communication is the cure to all problems. Lack of communication, you're going to get yourself in a lawsuit. Communication. Number 2, understanding contracts. Understanding contracts. You don't understand contracts, then you better get on it and start learning the contracts. The lingo, RPA, TDS, SPQ, AD, ACs, WSB, and all the shenanigans of all the contracts that we have. Rule number 2, gotta learn it. Number 3, you've got to know negotiations. I mean, I have no skill set in negotiations. I get it. It's a finesse. It's not something that you're going to learn overnight. But it's always, and this is the pillar to this topic, is knowing how to make it a win-win for all parties. Making it a win-win for all parties. That is negotiations. Okay? Not you representing the buyer, not you representing the seller. And I'm going to protect my client, of course, 100%. But knowing how to finesse the dance, right? Have you seen great dancers? There's a finesse to it, right? You know how to dance. Well, real estate is the same thing. Knowing how to finesse the other agents, your clients, diffuse the situation. Now, I'm not the best at negotiation. I'll tell you right off the bat, but I do my very darnest to do it. But I will never stop fighting for you. I'll chip away just like Rocky. You can knock me down and keep knocking me down. Guess what? I'm going to keep coming up and I'm going to keep fighting for you. And that's why I was able to last 5 years with Taylor. 5 years as the broker. Then I made a decision because now I was going to divorce number 2.
Oh, boy.
I'm telling you, I'm human. I make mistakes. I only see the exterior. I don't see the internal. That's an understatement, right? I made a mistake. So there I go again, going back to the drawing board. Fail number 2. So I was going through some crazy stuff while I was here. I was trying to keep it very low and low key But it was just, it was hard. I was keeping my composure, but ultimately it was just really tough. The second one really kicked me and kicked me hard financially, big time. Oh, I hope she's not on Zoom. I want to keep it entertaining. Okay? So you can bag on me, we could bag on my ex as well. I a little bit more on the soft side with my first than I am with my second, but that's beside the point. So there was an opportunity to, because I was commuting from Chino Hills all the way down here to Torrance, 62 miles one way, 107 miles each day, every day, Monday to Friday. I was that committed. And I was committed to my agents, to you, all of you, each and every one. Because I could have easily done it over the phone, easily done it through email, but I needed to be present because that's what required of this role. I became broker of the year 2 consecutive years. Now I didn't win, but I was nominated, and I was honored to hear my name at the South Bay Association of Realtors as I was going to say the rookie of the year, but the broker. Broker of the year. So I lost my train of thought.
Ex-wives.
Oh, yeah. You had to bring the XY. Shame on you. Shame on you.
There is a.
Now we can.
Fast forward to number 10.
Not there yet. Not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Anyways, so I ended up leaving Keller Williams and became a branch manager for a competitive office, Century 21. I was a branch manager in Montebello, and that was fun. But it was not the same dynamic like I had it here at Keller Williams. So the OP that was my OP during my broker years was the same OP when I got back to becoming the team leader of this office. So he ended up recruiting me back with this opportunity. And it was not to be this team leader for this office, was to be a team leader for Long Beach. It took about 6 months. And I was like, yeah, you know what? That seems like a great opportunity, more money, more incentives. So I was like going through the trenches of it. And then ultimately, that's when Jeff said, well, you know what? I think Tori wants to step down from the role. How about going back to South Bay? And I immediately said, heck yeah. So I took on the role last year in January of 2020. So I became your team leader last year. Then pandemic hit, right? March of 2020. It was like a spiral effect of things going on. We lost Kobe Bryant, right? Then we had this pandemic. Then we started having agents getting sick, and then unfortunately we had some death in our office. It's like, what's going on? I was like, I just couldn't understand every element of what was going on. It was really tough for me, and I was trying to hold my composure through all this while I was the team lead virtually, because no one was coming into the office. Everything was being done via Zoom. I didn't even know what Zoom was. And then when I started Zoom, my first Zoom, and Chris Rivera can testify to this, it was like an out-of-body experience for me. It's like, I feel like, what's going on here? Because I'm so accustomed to seeing people eye to eye, seeing their movements, not Zoom, because some were on their phone, some were talking to someone else, some were getting up and they were half naked. But Chris can testify to that. Huh?
Was that recorded?
Oh, yeah. I got some juicy stuff in there. I'll collect some money. So, so the rest is history. We're here, we're now. During the transition this year, the previous broker, Rich Pisani, decided, hey, I can't deal with your agents there. They're just a whole different animal. I don't want this role. So I said, it's no problem. I spoke with my operating principal, Jennifer Kisera, and it just like it would be a great fit. So I have two roles. I have team lead, broker of record merged together. It's very rare to see that, but Simon can do it. Simon can do it. Okay, and I'm a yes man.
Oh, boy.
That's why I got married twice. It's my fault. My fault. Anyhow, so you guys all excited?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you ready to get started?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So now you know a little bit about me, 25 years. I'm only 27 right now.
You reminded me of that song that says 25 years and my life is still.
Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. So, all right. All right. Disclaimer. If you need to leave, by all means leave, okay? This session is being recorded, I believe. Now, I'm not the only resources that you have. California Association of Realtor also has the classes at a cost, but eventually it will be free, okay? The South Bay and all the local associations will start having the class for free. I'm not, and I'm putting this disclaimer, I am not an attorney, and I know a lot of the classes, especially the RPA, will be taught by attorneys, okay? So I stress, and I want to put this out there, take the classes if you need to again, okay? This is my version of it, but everyone has their own unique style of doing the real estate contracts, okay? I'm only giving you from what I see. And I can be right or I can be wrong. The one thing that I can truly tell you is, I got your back, I got your best interest, and I will fight for you, okay? I've done it numerous times and I will continue to the day I die. Real estate is in my blood, okay? And I will continue doing this until I say no more. So, any questions, thoughts before we continue? All right. All right, all right. Let's see here. Yes.
This copy that I got over here is missing,
Talk to Natalie.
I don't know if this is the right copy,
I don't know. Let me see.
16 pages. Because the postal mailing address is not on here.
Oh, this one is different. Can you actually give me another copy? Can you tell Nat?
Is this the correct one? Which one is?
The one that's, this one is the correct one. Let me borrow this real quick. I'll give you this. This is the one right now.
Postal?
Yeah, because this one.
That one doesn't say postal either. That one does, so I don't know what's.
The one that I have up here is basically a little different than the one I gave you. Now, there's a lot of revisions and there will continue to be new revisions. So just stand by because most of the information I will provide you. Okay? So, the new California purchase agreement and joint escrow you should have is the RPA 1221 on the very top. Okay. Now, the new version of the RPA is 16 pages long. 16. Right here. What you have in front of you is 16 pages of this darn RPA. You know, I think they want us to be doctors and get degrees and become attorneys because this is a lot of legal jargon. And, you know, we're licensed real estate agents to practice what? Sell, buy, and invest. So it surprises me that right now, when I started real estate back in the 90s, it was totally different. There was only five pages. Way back in the day, 5 pages.
When I started, one.
Thank you, sir. Now it's 16 pages long. 16 pages long. So now I was hoping, I was really truly hoping that I purchased there's a book with the California, and I was hoping I would have the book to show you. But most of the information is from this book that you can purchase with the California Association of Realtors. It's called the California Residential Purchase Agreement, Your Guide Horseman. Okay. Now, if all of you should be members, it's about $75, $80. It's an expensive book, but it goes deep into all the paragraphs of the RPA and explanations to it. That's where I go, guys. It's not up here. It's here. Maybe a little bit up here. So, but that's where I get this information, folks. Okay. So, you know, the cool and fun thing is that this changes are done twice a year. Twice a year. One in June, one in December. This is December's new revision of the RPA. Come June 2022 will be the new revised, add, or take it away. And in December of 2022, we'll have new revisions too. Maybe not as much to the RPA, but there's going to be some revisions or some added new disclosures and contracts. Okay. Now, this is pretty self-explanatory. I like this new contract because now it lays it out instead of doing this, okay, trying to find the most important stuff, right, which is price, terms, and conditions. We want to know what the price is to present to the seller. We want to know what the terms are so we can present to the seller. And we want to know other elements of what the buyer is requesting before we say yes to that and accept it and we open escrow. Now, who owns these contracts? Okay, yes, CAR owns these contracts. Once you fill it out, who owns the contracts? What? It depends. Okay, thank you. Who said that? Okay, Dave, thank you. It depends. Because if you have the buyer that signed, then the buyer owns it. If you have the seller that signed it, then it's the seller. But what about when you have everyone sign and execute it? Now both the buyer and the seller own this contract. This is what they're dictating. This is what the buyer is requesting. And ultimately, it's really the decision of the seller to determine yes, maybe, or no way. We're not going to accept this offer. We're going to counter that offer, or we're going to accept it as is. You all with me? Okay, cool. Now, and I apologize. This form is, there's a lot of revisions, and there's still going to be more revisions. I'm going to tell you honestly. What you see here, what you see in front of you may be different by the time December comes. Okay, so be flexible, okay? Because Simon said it's going to look like this and it doesn't look like this. What is going on? There's consistent revisions because the attorneys from the California Association of Realtors are constantly adding, tweaking, modifying, doing what they need to do before it actually goes to launch. Y'all with me? Okay, so do not take it for what it is right now. We're just talking to what we have right now. December, it may be different. Y'all with me? Okay. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? Very, very self-explanatory. So the first is date prepared, right? That's the date that the agent prepares the form. Not when they submit, not when they exchange. It's the date that the agent prepared this form. It's a way to reference your document. Because if you're dealing with a lot of buyers, you don't want to get yourself confused. What offer did I send on what date with this buyer, buyer A? What date did I do for buyer B? Y'all with me on that, right? So that's the date that you created the form. This is an offer from, right? What do you think goes there? Exactly. It's right here. Buyer. Your buyer. So that's where you're going to put your buyer's information. Now, what if the buyer is a corporation? Your buyer is a LLC. Does that go there? Yeah. Anyone that's submitting an offer, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, brother and sister, sister, husband and wife, business partner, you put the name of the person that will inquire the real estate, how they're gonna take title in real estate. Now, the cool thing about this is there's a lot of modifications. Once you're open escrow, there's modifications. They take it on as personal, but then they want to transfer it into an LLC. I do that quite often. And any real estate that I buy it under my name to qualify for mortgages, right? But then I immediately transfer it to a corporation. Now, if you have the capital, you can buy it directly from your corporation if the corporation has the means to buy it cash. And we'll have a conversation over that. Yes, sir.
You actually transfer it to escrow as the best thing.
Correct. Correct. I just threw myself off here with my paperwork. So bear with me here for 1 moment. All right, so the buyer's information. Now, if there is a corporation, then you also are going to include what's called a capacity representation addendum to that corporation. What that form is a form that, yes, this is the corporation, but we need to know who's authorized on behalf of the corporation to submit this offer. It cannot just be an entity. It has to be someone that's delegated as the person, CEO, vice president, treasurer, partner, whatever that case, to execute this offer on behalf of the corporation. So there's a form that is attached to this purchase agreement.
Michael,
Yes,
does the same go for trust?
yes, ma'am. Thank you. Also goes for a trust. The property is in, the property to be inquired, okay, is the physical address, 123 ABC Street, Torrance, California, 90505. County of Los Angeles, State of California, zip code. The assessor, parcel, just below. That's like the Social Security to our personal. And I want to stress the mere fact of how important that you double, triple your APN number. Because we have a potential lawsuit. We were not sued, but the seller ended up suing the buyer, and the buyer ended up suing the seller because someone dropped the ball. Someone put wrong information, and the seller owned a piece of land adjacent to the subject property, but the escrow incorporate both the land on the side and the house as one. And the seller did not want to sell that. That was separate. And we have information from the listing agreement that says that only the property is to be sold, not the lot on the side. Because the lot was, the homeowner had it for his brother, if I remember correctly. They grew plants and fruits and vegetables. But somehow everyone missed it. And when the deal closed, we didn't even know until the buyer got a tax statement that APN, that lot, which was a decent sized lot, which was worth at the time about 180, 200,000, just a lot, was incorporated with the residential. It had two separate ones, but the name, the owner were on both, so they assumed. Assumption is a liability. Never assume anything, folks, okay? Make sure you document it, because here's what happened. And it took almost a year and a half later of back and forth, because the buyer said, hey, it's my property now. You want it? I'll sell it to you. What the heck? That was not part of the agreement, and there's no documentation saying that. But when the buyer wants to fight or the seller wants to fight, guess what? They will fight. And, it can get pretty expensive and they can drag you as an agent involved in this and you just don't want to be involved in it. Okay, question?
Yes, the exact opposite can also happen. I sold a piece of property with land mostly, and there were about 5 parcels.
Uh-huh.
And title missed it, escrow missed it, and the other agent missed it. They left one parcel out.
Yeah.
And I had to point it to them to include it. And they did.
Yeah.
It would have been really hard to reverse everything and include that parcel. Everybody has to cooperate, starting with the seller.
Absolutely,
And if
100%.
they don't want to, it could happen the other way.
Yeah, this is why you gotta really look at the contracts. Any little thing can alter this, these transactions. I know, I've been sued numerous times, not me personally, but the company, but because I was the broker, guess what? My name is on these claims. It's never fun. If it's not fun for me, that I see them consistently, I can just imagine someone like you that has never experienced this, your heart is going to start pounding. Okay? Oh, it never happens to me. Wait until it happens to you. Your heart rate is going to go up. It's never fun, folks. Okay, so I urge you, work with integrity. Never take shortcuts. Not always do the right thing. Because I know how my license is that golden ticket. My license is worth billions of dollars. Because once they pull that out of me, I'm not going to be able to make the money that I want. You all with me on this? And I mean that with sincerity, folks. Keep your license. I've had people lose their license, get their license suspended, revoked. I had a team leader lose their license. They're doing something she should have not done. Speaking the truth. Yes, sir.
Yeah, this might be worth mentioning. Sometimes when you're double checking parcel that should be included or not, the parcel is the circle number on a plot plan. A parcel could have 1, 2, 3, 20 lots. That's not it. Your IPN is the circle, and that's disclosed everywhere, parcel number. And that, again, it could include 1, 2, 3, 20 lots.
Right.
So don't go by all the number of lots. They're described. in
You,
the-
again, going back, and then thank you, going back, double check, triple check, and make sure you ask a lot of questions, because you may think that that's incorporate and it may not be. And that's why you need to have clarity over that.
On your profile, it's right there,
Yes, sir.
but there may be more than one parcel. So how do you check is the number of that circle,
Mhm.
not the lots. Lots don't mean anything. The one-
Right.
That is your parcel number. You're gonna check.
100%, 100%. Thank you so much for sharing, Lee. Okay, the next is obviously section C. The terms of the purchase are specified below on the following pages. Okay, that's pretty self-explanatory. Section 2 talks about the agency, and that's now considered a disclosure. Even though we would include it as part of the process, now they're also putting this on the first page of the RPA. The parties in each acknowledge receipt of disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship, AC form, or AD, I should say. If represented by a real estate licensed buyer agent is not legally required to give the seller agent the AD form signed by the buyer. Seller agent is not legally obligated to give the buyer's agent an AD form signed by the seller. Now, the reason we disclose that is because the number one thing that you all as real estate professionals need to understand is that you do not provide an agency for your relationship with your client, your buyers, or your sellers, then ultimately they can say, I'm not going to pay you a commission. I was never provided with an agency disclosure. Now, someone that is not sophisticated on understanding the contracts may not understand that, but if you get a savvy buyer, a savvy seller, and they understand the elements of that agency disclosure, they can say, well, you never provided me with that. And unfortunately, if you go through the motions, you close, they can come back and say, we don't owe you a commission. Very important, very important. That's why they added confirmation to this RPA. It was already incorporated, but they put it right in the smack front page of the RPA. The confirmation says as follows. Agency relationships are hereby confirmed for this transaction, which the confirmation is, who do you represent? Do you represent the buyer? Do you represent the seller? Or do you represent the buyer and the seller? Y'all with me? Okay, confirmation. Disclosures, disclosures, disclosures. We're going to talk a lot about disclosures. Remember when you started real estate school, it was locations, locations, locations? Well, guess what? You are now licensed entrepreneurs, and now it's all about disclosures. Knowing disclosures. Okay? And how you address those disclosures, and this is part of that disclosure. Confirmation and who you represent. Very self-explanatory. Seller, broker firm, obviously Keller Williams, South Bay. Company's license number, which is 001 8 something, 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 something. And it also says check one. Check if you're working with the seller, check if you're working both the buyer and the seller as a dual agent. And then the selling agent, the same thing. Mostly, if you're submitting an RPA, who do you represent?
Buyer.
Can't hear you.
Buyer.
Thank you. The buyer, 100%. Okay, but if you are the listing agent, you happen to do an open house, and that buyer comes in, I am not being represented by anyone. Hello, I can help you submit the offer. That's where dual agency comes into play. Y'all with me?
We have 2 agents for the sale.
Thank you. Rosie had a good point. Dual agency can also mean 2 agents under the same license. Okay, that's considered dual agency. Now, I'm going to throw this at you because I want to protect you. Okay, there's going to be a lot of life experience, what I call war stories regarding this, because I want to make sure that I protect each and every one of you. Okay, because I've seen it firsthand how nasty sometimes these contracts can take you to the dark side. And I don't want to take you to the dark side. I want to keep you on the heaven side, right?
Yeah.
I want to get you paid, right? So dual agency is a very touchy situation. It's like walking on eggshells, okay? And if you're a big guy like myself, you're gonna bust all these eggs. But you gotta understand the dynamics and how to flow through and understand your position when you represent dual agency. Why? Because how can you protect each party if you know each other's information? How do you keep that neutral aspect of, you know, what the seller's bottom number is, you know, your buyer's top number is, where the buyer's not willing to go over that asking price of this, and where the seller is willing to go as low as this, but you don't tell that to the buyer. Very sensitive situation. Or you're on negotiations with request of repairs. You know that the seller is willing to do this, but they're asking you to negotiate and have the buyer come up with whatever they want to do. Touchy situation. You got to play it neutral and throw it back at the buyer, back at the seller. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I am not the one selling this property, unfortunately. You got to tell me. Because my job is to represent you and to protect you, but ultimately to take care of your best interest. I'm going to flip that now to the buyer. I'm going to use that same scenario. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, I'm not the one buying this property, so you got to tell me. I'm not going to be making those mortgage payments. So you got to tell me what your position is, because my goal and my job is to protect you and your best interest. Y'all with me? Okay. Simple, right? It's not complex. Or maybe it is. I got your back. You're going to hear me say that a lot. I got your back. Yeah, right, Simon. Anyone that has been with me long enough know that I do definitely have your back. Okay, because I know how painful that can be. All right, any questions regarding confirmation? Y'all good on that? Can we check it off? All right, let's continue. Section C goes, more than one broker represents seller, agent. Okay, so that's when you have multiple brokerages representing either party, okay? You can be two agents from two different companies. Keller Williams, Remax, okay? Maybe you have a friend, maybe you have a colleague, maybe you are trying to recruit them to come to Keller Williams, but this is what's gonna put that cherry on top to say, let's close this deal, and then come and join us. Who knows? But you can work with an outside brokerage. I don't encourage it because now you're splitting your money, but sometimes that's what happens, especially listings. You go to the west side all day long. Dual brokerages representing the seller, open listings where there's multiple agents involved in selling that house. Whoever brings the buyer that's ready, willing, and able is the winning ticket. You're going to get paid a commission. You can market it all you want. You can do this, you can do that, but it's an open listing. Meaning no one really has the exclusive right to compensation. Y'all with me? Okay. So that's what it means. Any questions? All right, and it's pretty self-explanatory. If you have a copy, it shows the blue where it's already automatically checked, possible representation of more than one buyer and one seller. That section D as in David, basically says, you as a real estate professional, guess what you can do? You can represent multiple buyers, multiple, technically sellers, and submit offers on the same property. But you have to disclose that to each and every principal. Okay, not the principal like I used to get whacked at school. If you grew up in my era of the 70s and 80s, the principal used to whack you in the rear with the wooden bat, and it had little holes in it. Darn. Bad memories. I never got in trouble, but I had friends that got their butts bruised. So when I say principal, I mean buyer and seller. That's what we say principals. These are the principals that are buying and selling. Y'all with me? Okay. So we have to provide that as a disclosure anytime because you have the right, your license authorizes you to allow to represent. I represent Mike and I represent Louis. Okay. They both want to submit an offer on Jim's listing. Okay. And Louis comes up to me, hey, I like this house that Jim has. Can you represent me? Absolutely. Then I have, who did I say? Mike. I said, Mike also says the same thing. Hey, Simon, I want to submit an offer on Jim. And Jim is part of my team. He's one of my agents. So we have dual agency. But what the form is disclaiming is that I can represent both. I'm disclosing that I might be possibly representing more than one buyer. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, number 3, terms of purchase and allocation of costs. The items in the paragraph of contractual terms of agreement. This is where the fun stuff comes in, guys. This is why this contract has redefined this RPA. Now, most of you who submit offers, most of you who have been in the industry for quite some time, you can see the notice, right? The facelift.
Yeah.
The RPA got a facelift, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, wanted to get a little pretty for us. Okay, wanted to keep it more upfront because there's been a lot of changes.
More transparent.
Thank you, Stu. More transparency. Absolutely. Yes, Rosie.
Okay, so it's, okay, yes, answer my question. So 2 days after the buyer's signature, so it's gonna be the 3 days before. Okay.
Correct. So this is the awesome part is this information now. Item by item, all this stuff. So it's a little different, but it's not necessarily like crazy different. It's just the layout. Before the purchase agreement was up here, the deposit was here, the finance was here, increased deposit was here, and then all your financials, right?
Mhm.
Now they kind of condensed all this and put it all into like a little package deal. Yes, sir.
Well, one of the tips that I kind of learned when I had this before is that they're calling that the grid.
The grid, yeah.
Grid. And all the negotiable terms are within that grid. You don't have to go looking for the whole contract.
You took my words out of my mouth. Thank you, Sue. Yep.
Sorry.
You're like 5 steps ahead of me, but thank you. By the way, Sue is my assistant. Thank you, Sue. Yeah, it is now considered the grid.
The paragraph number refers you to the inside of the contract, and you can read.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, remember, I put this disclaimer early on, I am not an attorney. And if I don't know the answer to your question, forgive me. Okay, guess what I'll do? I will research it. I will talk to the attorneys and I will have an answer for you. Maybe not right now, but I'll have an answer for you. Okay? We're all on it together, right? Okay. So yes, as Sue was saying, this is now considered the grid, not the grind, the grid. Pardon me here. All right. So section 3A, price. Obviously, we know the price, right? You're going to put the price of what the buyer is willing to submit. If this is a cash offer, you just skip one little grid section, right? And there on the far right says what? What? I can't hear you. Come on, class participation. Wake up, smell the bacon. I just want to have that engagement because I know this is really boring, okay? And the pizza is not going to help you. It's going to make you get more sick. That's why I'm waiting. And this fella, he says, no pizza for you, Simon. Yes, sir. Obey, obey. I got a little on the chunky side. All right. Section B, close up escrow. All right, so no difference in the previous one. It says you can do calendar days, right? Typically, I prefer to say 30 days, 45 days, 50 days, whatever the case may be. Or you can be very specific, very specific. Okay, I want to close on November 15, 2022.
Oh,
Wait a minute, that's a year from now. I want to get paid today, not in a year. I just wanted to see if you were. Yeah, so you can be very specific if your client is asking for a specific date. Many reasons that they want to close on a specific date. Now, the cool thing about these purchase agreement is like writing a, what do they call it? You're on the beach. No, thank you, surfer. Okay, you can go this way, you can go this way, you can turn around, right? Yeah, no, I just almost busted my ankle. I think so. So contracts are meant to be lean as well and bend as well. I'm also going to talk to you about the black and white of the contract, but I'm also going to talk to you the spirit of the contract. Two elements. The black and white compliance assignment, right? Based on what the contract says, but I'm also going to talk to you about the spirit of the contract, the bend of the contract. Because at any given time, whatever direction either wants to go, it's going to go. And there's no way you can stop it. You could just be that person that leads them to whatever direction either party wants to go. You all with me? Okay? You're not going to be the stuff of the wall. That's not your job. Your job is to get direction of what the buyer, what the seller, what your investor wants to do. Because you don't want to put yourself in liability, and then now they say, Simon was the one that told me to do this. Liability. Okay? Raise your hand if you want to be in a lawsuit. Am I the only one? Come on, guys. No, just kidding. Don't get into a lawsuit. Section C talks about expiration. Now, back the old RPA, the expiration was paragraph 33, 34 of the RPA. Now it's up in the front. I love that. So now I know as a listing agent, shoot, they're only giving us what? 24 hours to respond to this. Y'all with me? So it says 3 days, all buyer signatures, date and timestamp. So if your buyer needs to know as soon as possible, folks, hey, I want to give the seller a timeline. If they don't respond, we're going to move to property number 2. So you give specific expiration dates. Y'all with me? Okay? Before, it used to be 3 days. 3 days. Now, if I have to look at the definition, but yeah, now doesn't have that anymore. So it's an open-ended contract. I don't know if that's a good thing. Okay?
The new one says 3 days or.
Oh, my bad. You're right. See, I need my glasses. I thought I could be a superhero today and wing it, but unfortunately, I missed that. Thank you, David. See? He's assistant number 2. Yes, you're absolutely 100%. It's 3 days after all buyers' signatures. That's the key. You're missing a signature, there's no 3 days. Section number 3D1, 5A, additional deposit. That's where you're going to put either the deposit amount or the percentage amount. Okay, what is the maximum a seller can retain on liquidated damages? How much? 3%. If the buyer puts in more than 3%, what happens to the remainder of that deposit?
Goes back to the buyer.
Yes, thank you. The remainder of that deposit goes back to the buyer. Okay. So I see a lot of real estate agents just put a flat amount, 10,000, 15,000, 25,000. But you also have the percentage where you should put. Now, just on the side of it now, it has where it says additional terms within 3 days, or excuse me, within 3 business days. Business means what? Monday to Friday, not including weekends and holidays, right? Is Monday considered a holiday?
It's Monday, yes.
It's Columbus Day, right? Is that a holiday? I don't know, because I work during holidays. I'm still like up in the air on that. I don't know if it is. Is the bank going to be closed?
Yeah.
Yeah, the post office too. I'm not sure. And then it also says here, after acceptance by wire transfer or any other means. Okay. Increased deposit, everyone should have kind of understand the increased deposit is the money placed into escrow after the initial deposit. So let's just say, for example, that the buyer only has $500 that they're going to put deposit. They're cash poor. They have substantial equity on the sale of their home that they can utilize to put up to 3%. But they don't have the means. And I've been in scenarios where the buyer just puts just enough. You got to explain it because the listing agent is going to say $500. Wait a minute, are you having money? But that's where the increased deposit comes into place, guys. That the buyer in the near future will add more of a deposit. As an example, buyer who is selling their home sells, gets the net proceeds of the sale of their home, and now can put an additional deposit into escrow. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay, so it's an incentive that, yeah, I only have 500 to put now, but in 2 weeks from acceptance, I'm going to put an additional $40,000. Yes, sir.
On the initial deposit, how customary is it for the owner or seller to come back and say, I want 10 or 20% down as liquidated damages? Is that ever negotiated or used?
It is, but that's more in the commercial realm,
Not in residential.
not really residential. And I would caution you if you go into, kind of modifying those languages onto the purchase agreement. A very good question, Lee. Thank you. All right, let's continue, folks. Yeah.
Still is 3% no matter what, right? So.
No, it's not no matter what. It's whatever the buyer wants to put as a deposit. Now, the seller can come back and say, no, on the counter offer, we are asking up to 3% that the buyer put into escrow. And if that's the term, then the buyer has to abide by that, or they're not going to get their offer accepted. Make sense?
What I'm asking is that increased deposit, initial deposit, the total should be 3% max, right?
No, very good question. Thank you. This is why I love you guys. You guys are awesome. You're throwing things to make my head spin. Stop it. I wasn't prepared for all this. Stop. So to answer your question, Dave, very good question. No, anything increased can be up to 3%, but it also can be up to more. I have one of our agents that has a deposit on a $775,000 price point. The buyer's putting 100,000 deposit. Why? 100,000. That's more than 3%. Now, based on the contract and based on liquidated damages, the buyer, excuse me, the seller can go after damages, breach of contract, buyer not performing up to 3%. And I say that because it's up to 3%. It doesn't mean 3% is gone. There's two elements to that. Because the buyer can be very savvy, folks, and I'll explain. This is why I love contracts and I love negotiations, because I understand the elements of all parts of it. Not everything. I still scratch my head like, huh? But for the most part, I know when you understand these contracts to the highest level, you can be able to control the conversation and say, no, Mr. or Mrs. Agent, that is incorrect. Please refer back to 14B, 1417 of page 3 of the RPA, and it says the following. You just articulated your conversation. And that's why you win the battle sometimes, because you know and understand the dynamics of these contracts. Y'all with me? So going back to your question, David, is the buyer can put whatever they want. They can put $1. And if the seller accepts, you're in escrow. Seriously. Seriously. As long as there's a meeting of the mind and everyone is in agreement. I just want to make sure I get my 3% commission. That's it. I can care less of what they want to do. Yeah, right? I'm pro-choice commission, baby. I'm only saying. Okay? Question?
Yeah, regarding the initial deposit, the buyer mentioned offer, but presents no pre-qualification, pre-approval letter of any sort. Can the seller say, put 10% or 20% as liquidated damages? Not 3%, but 20%. And that's your
100%.
liquidated damages, because I'm taking a chance of you being turned down on financials. And that
Absolutely.
become a real liquidated damages?
100%.
Then,
Yeah.
okay, so it could be any
So,
percentage.
bottom line is, thank you, Lee. Bottom line, if the buyer is willing to put $1 million on a $100,000 price point, why would he do that? I don't know. Make his offer look very enticing. He's going to get back the 900,000, right?
In this market.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly, in this market. But what I'm saying is, the buyer can do whatever they want.
Between buyer and
And
seller.
as long as the seller puts something in writing that says otherwise, look, yeah, you can put the 900 additional into escrow, but I'm also going to say that if you don't perform, I'm going to go after the entire deposit. And if the buyer signs off on it, guess what? The buyer forfeits, the buyer cancels, the buyer breaches the contract, seller can go after that amount. Yeah.
It could
Be
be,
careful.
it could be elaborated that it's an automatic release of funds.
I wouldn't use
No, I
automatic.
understand.
Yeah, that's commercial legal. By the way, Lee is a commercial guy, so any commercial. That's commercial stuff. I never want to, and again, from my personal
You want to
experience.
follow this as much as.
Remember what I said, the black and white and the spirit of the contract. Remember those two words, because I remember my old training officers. By the way, I don't know if I told you, I'm an ex LA County Sheriff deputy. So I didn't say that because it has nothing to do with real estate, but yeah, I used to work at the county. Anyways, I remember the spirit of the law. We used to talk about the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law basically says, you know, I pull someone that's going 100 miles, I can make that determination if I want to take them to jail, reckless driving, right? Or say, you know what? I'm still taking you to jail. Yeah, so the spirit basically means, look, I'm gonna give you a warning, slow down. Remember, you're not the only one racing here. You got other people, pedestrians here, you know, going at 100 miles is just not very safe to do so. And I can leave it as a warning. Documented that I did have a talk with this individual, and if this sucker or lady sucker comes back and goes 100, again, I'm gonna write them up and put them in jail. Okay? That's the spirit. So I incorporate that into what we call real estate now, because I believe in the bends of the contracts, the bends of, you know, buyer and seller's decision. Now, real estate is a very emotional transaction period for everyone, for the buyers, the sellers, the investors, and guess what? Agents too. We get so emotionally entangled in this. Stop it.
Shouldn't, yes.
Business, business, business. Remember I said disclosures, disclosures, locations, locations. Now it's different now. When it's on the red check that. Okay? Stay professional and, you know, take your emotions out of this. Remember, it's not your money. Well, technically it is if you don't build the darn thing, right? Wait a minute, it is, Simon. You're tapping into my commission now. Stop it. I get it, okay? But at the end of the day, 100%, you know, whatever direction the buyer, the seller want to go with this, it's up to them. We can't stop them. Heck, we're having another issue with one of our agents that was selling a property and was going to give possession to the buyer without the tenant in place. And guess what? The damn tenant is still there. We just had a team meeting with the attorney talking about tenants' rights. And now the seller is paying $45,000 for the buyer to take possession, close and take possession of that tenant. That's a lot of money. And the seller didn't want to fight. I was like ready to fight this buyer, like, you can't do that. But that's not me. Remember what I said earlier. Okay? It's not me. I'm not buying that property. I'm not selling that property. Now, if you're selling your personal property, you're buying your personal property, you do whatever you want, fight to the end. Like the gladiators. You remember that movie from 2000? The gladiators. He goes in there and fights bigger opponents and squashes them and kills them. Okay, that's me. I'm ready to fight. But if the seller is not willing to fight, if the buyer is not willing to fight, then you follow lead of what they want to do, ladies and gentlemen. It's not your job to say otherwise. And that's when liability comes into play. You all with me? Yes. All right. Yes, sir.
Quick question on the PA. So you got the 3 days. So in the old days, your escrow instructions were really what they signed and made it like contract. Nowadays, it's the contract. Correct?
Correct.
So if somebody says they gotta have it in 3 days, they don't put it in 3 days. I have this question in my mind, how do you really have a legal contract? Now this is the legal contract. How do you, is there any legal remedy to go after them? You just do deal, then you sold, and somebody else went down another house.
Yeah. I love that question. So I'm going to answer that question.
Can you repeat it? Please?
He basically was stipulating is when a buyer submits an offer, we have an acceptance, right? The buyer's going to put up so much into escrow, right? But then the contract says in 3 business days, the buyer puts in the deposit. What if not put the deposit within the 3 days? What are the remedies? Well, yeah, you're in breach, but what do? So the answer to that is immediately I'm going to send that buyer's agent the notice to perform. That's the proper way.
Right.
I mean, to me, if someone is not putting their deposit within that time period, something is wrong. Is the buyer getting a little bit of cold feet? Okay. Or maybe it was during the weekend and it's taking a little longer. But I need to be proactive as a listing agent. I'm going to send that notice to perform, and that notice to perform, I'm going to squash it because I'm not going to wait a week and hope and pray that the buyer puts in the deposit. I'd rather cancel and move on to the next buyer.
You're only really notice perform no legal.
None.
Okay.
You can't force them. How can you force? You can't even go after any money. There's no money to go after. It's not in escrow. Okay?
I think that notice to perform should be followed by 3 to 5 calls and finding out they're really flaking out, or you just.
Well, this is where you have to be very proactive, 100%.
Communication.
Yeah. You call that agent, and you say, you sucker, where's that buyer's deposit?
You may have a good explanation.
Don't do that. That was not Simon talking. I should be a comedian.
It's still fine.
Stick to real estate. You know, it's funny because I used to teach real estate schools back in the day. And a lot of you, some of my old students are still real estate agents today. And I remember it was just like a conveyor belt in a way. And I was just so at awe with all my students because they had a lot of questions like children. And I'm this teacher and teaching, you know, the real estate school and the practical real estate. But and I'm sorry, but I just want to share this real quick. Every time I would have an orientation with a group of agents, you know, we had the books, Principles, Practice, and Legal Aspects. And the first day I would look at my class and I wouldn't say anything for like 30 seconds. And then I would say, before I say anything about myself, you know, see these books? For the next whatever weeks, we're not gonna open up those books. They're like, what kind of class is this? I remember Tina here still? Tina. Tina would sit right here, and she was like a radar. I would do this. I would get so nervous with Tina. And she was like, Tommy, I would do this. It's like, okay. And she was like, the whole 2 hours. Made me a little nervous. But she's one of our phenomenal agents. So give her a big shout out. Right, back to the boring stuff, guys. Sorry, I know I go some way sideways. Yes.
I actually putting accepted an offer that was 10,000 more than the other offer. But that person did not do their deposit and it fell out of escrow. You missed, and then the next buyer who offered 10,000 less is already gone.
Yeah.
Can you see the buyer sue? Seller sue for
It's a legal
10,000.
contract, so it would be a real small thing. I know it's a stupid question, but it's happening.
Well, how can you? Okay, here I'm gonna talk the black and white in the spirit of the contract. Okay, and I know I'm gonna go a little sideways, but it's a great question. Remember, if there's no money in escrow, there's really no recourse that the seller has. Can they go and take on the small claims? You breached the contract. You are now obligated because you took off all your contingency. You are buying the property as is. You are buying it all cash. You release all your contingencies, but you never put the deposit in. The judge is going to see it as, well, the seller has the rights. The buyer did breach. The contract says there was supposed to be $20,000, but then it's going to go back to the listing agent. And if Ron is the listing agent, the judge is going to say, well, Ron, how long have you been in real estate? 20 years. How many transactions have you done in the last 12 months? 25. Okay. Do you understand contracts? I do. Do you understand every element of those contracts of what they're supposed to do? I do. Part of that was the initial deposit of 20,000, right? Yes. Now the contract also says that if the buyer doesn't perform, what is your obligation to do? well, to do the notice to perform, to put in that deposit. Well, Ron, did you enforce that by sending the notice to perform? No. Okay, so you really don't have a valid position or a valid point, is what I'm saying. Okay, this is why you want to be nice, to try to get the buyer to put the deposit in escrow. Because once the money is in escrow, then it's game on. Now we can go after some of that deposit. Does that make sense? It's going to be very hard to try to take a buyer to court when there's really no money in escrow. And yeah, I mean, it's like anything. There was an agreement in place between the buyer and the seller. But I can tell you from personal experience, it's going to be a long hill to battle if there's no money in escrow, because it's like a fugitive, you know, if they want to hide, they're going to hide, right? But if we have, you know, some evidence where we can kind of narrow it down, then there's a chance that we can capture. Well, that goes to the deposit. If we have some skin in the game, we can capture some of that money. You know, does that make sense? I hope that kind of answers your question.
I think he wanted to know, like, say you missed out on another offer.
That's the point.
Yeah, the point is, can you go to some small things for
That's happened in the past.
the money you lose?
Well, it depends. It depends on how long you're in this predicament. If you're waiting 25 days for the buyer to put the money and then the buyer decides to cancel, then yeah, I could say, like, shame on the listing agent for not closing faster or sooner. But I get your point. It's a very unique situation. I haven't heard anyone really go after a buyer because the buyers did not put a deposit or cancel. Okay, and I'm assuming that this is where no deposit is in escrow, or there is no deposit. Yeah,
You lost out on the next buyer because now they.
I get it. What the judge is going to say is put it back on the market.
Yeah.
Put it back as active.
That's the-
Find another buyer. Go work. Go do an open house. Go prospect. Hey, I'm in charge. I got my real estate license. Shame on you for not doing your job. Okay, that's gonna happen. Okay, question.
I think that this comes into the realm of being the necessity for 5 or 6 ingredients. If it's real estate, it has to be in writing. You can't be crazy or drunk under duress, and there has to be money involved. So as long as there was no money in it, it's not a contract.
Right.
At that point, the judge or somebody or an attorney is going to blame the agent.
Right.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's a reason to really be careful to
Right.
follow all bases.
Right.
Because the judge is probably going to go to the agent, you're at fault.
Yeah.
And you're.
Believe me, where's Jimmy at? Jimmy, haven't we gone to court? Remember that knucklehead here in Torrance? He knows. I've been to court with
You
him.
didn't say that.
Okay, but we ended up winning. We won. Yeah, so give him kudos. He did all the work. 40-something years of experience as a broker. So I think he's been a broker as long as I've been alive. 73, I think. 1973.
Wow.
Love you, Jim. All right, let's continue, guys, because we got a lot of more content. I hope that this is valuable information, okay? And again, you know, at the end of class, if you have additional questions, stop by, talk to me, and I'll be more than happy to address your question, okay? I just got a timeline. We're already an hour and 30 minutes, I think, and we're still on this page. Sorry. Sorry. All right, so loan obviously is the same elements, you know, a loan amount, what that loan amount. So how you calculate the loan amount is very simple, folks, okay? It's simple arithmetic, okay? I am Forrest Gump, okay? People call me Forrest Gump. Mom, what was the saying? Mom always told me. Something chocolate, yeah. I was gonna say it. Life is like a box of chocolate. You just never know what you're gonna get. Well, that's what you're gonna get with real estate. You just never know. Yes, you will, if you do and listen to the side. All right, loan amount is obviously you subtract the amount of down payment and obviously the deposit. It should calculate this. Now, this is still not eligible for me to do the edible. Is that edible? I'm not eat, but edit. Yeah. Or I can't put the numbers to see how all this kind of manipulates. You know, like right now, the purchase agreement, if you put the price, you put the deposit, and then it tells you to put the finance amount, and it'll calculate what the buyer would have to come in to close. I don't know how this works yet, because this is data, this is a beta test still until December when they actually implement it into zip forms. So I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm assuming it's going to do the calculations for you. That's just my interpretation, but I could
But
be
it's
wrong.
okay because we're already using this one until
December 2021. Yeah. So you're gonna put the amount just on the far right or the percentage. And this is the cool thing is, let's say you find somebody 20% down. Okay, right there.
Okay, so the second thing
Should
is I
calculate
sent you the website
that are not
for the
okay? Should be able to
city, for
calculate
the
it, so we don't
taxes.
have to punch
You
numbers
know, everything is a process, and when you guys are first-time home buyers,
in.
your
Fixed
main
rate,
concern is the
an
inspection
adjustment
of the
rate,
house.
not to exceed.
Then
I'm
your
gonna
second
caution
worry
you as
is
well.
the
I see a
appraisal.
lot of
And then
contracts.
I tell
I
you
used to
about
be
the
a
assessors,
compliance
because
officer, okay?
I
This is
never
compliance
received an assessor
officer.
when I
I
bought
was
my
a compliance
house,
broker
you
that
know.
would,
So,
see
and now
all
with
the,
COVID, like you
contractors that
say,
come
they are
in,
behind.
you check to approve
I
them,
tell you, the
not
best
to
thing
approve
that you
them,
can
take them
do
back to
is
the
to talk to
agent
them
and say, hey,
when you
listen, this,
receive
this,
that
this. So I was
information.
constantly looking at.
Okay, and you might not receive it in 30
days.
days. Who knows when you get it? I never got one.
So I would see a
So,
lot of errors and
but
mistakes.
if you do,
Now,
I send you the
reason I bring
website
this
and the
up to you is
calculator there.
because
What
a
other
good
thing I
seasoned agent is going to
no,
dissect
that
this
was
like
just a
a
post-it that
resume.
I do on my
And I'm
social
going to
media.
explain what I mean by
No,
that.
I send you.
When you are going for that job that your dream job that you want, as an example, you want to submit your resume.
Yes, so,
You want to make
that
sure
one
grammar,
gives you the phone and also the website.
education, everything that you can bring to the table,
Okay.
right?
And
If
in
you
that
wanna
website, there is a number,
showcase
and
your
you have to be on
resume
hold like for
to be
15
on
minutes.
top as a
But when they
consideration, right?
answer
You don't want your resume to be thrown
any
in the
question that you have, they
trash,
will
right?
tell you, and they
You want something that's gonna
are
pop.
expert on that. So I don't know much. The expert doesn't know. They are the ones who know.
Dissecting which
But
ones are
don't
good.
call them if
If
you
I
don't
see
get that.
errors and
Because they want to
mistakes,
meet you.
I
Okay.
don't know if I'm gonna work with that.
When you
agent.
receive that is when you're going to do
Respectfully,
something about it.
agents do that.
Okay.
I look
So
at their
what else did I
license
send you?
number.
I also send you the report.
Okay. I can
The city
tell more
report. So
relaxed
every
because
time
I'm
there
already
is there
more or
is a
less in
house
that
sold
situation.
in Los
I'm not
Angeles,
psychic,
the
but it's
city, we
simple,
need to tell the
common
city.
arithmetic.
So they have some requirements from the
The same
seller.
goes with how you create
Okay,
these,
so we got
these
it
purchase
today,
agreements, guys.
and then Mero is going to have you sign it with the loan docs.
Double check,
Yeah?
triple
He
check
told me
your
that you
documents, send them
will
over
get
to
the
me.
signature from
Say,
you
Simon,
guys
hey, I
today.
just need second eyes on this.
And
We'll
that's-
just review it. Sophia, I think we've done that.
He's going to sign it with you, yes, but I want you to have,
Proactive.
so you can, because you like to
Yeah,
read
we've done
before,
that many
in
times
case you
too.
have
Proactive.
questions.
Send them to me.
I love it. I wish I
And I'll say, hey, add this, take this. So that way you go ahead and submit it. and You look like a
So
pro.
that's it.
Okay?
About
So
it.
that's
And I'm
some of the
sorry.
things I can do here to help you.
Okay,
So that's where this information
but
goes.
today I have a
But
little bit more of time. So the last thing is the final walk. Okay, so the final walk consists of like 5 minutes. We go back to the house
And tomorrow
and we
the
see that
interest goes up to
everything is
10%.
the same way than
Guess
you
what?
when
The
you
buyer can
went there.
utilize that as an avenue to back
Okay,
out of
and
it.
Dana is going to remove the
Do
staging.
not leave it blank.
the little
Put it
things
in
that you have
interest
there.
rate. Speak with the lender
So
that's giving
tell me
your
ahead
borrower
of time when is
the
a good
loan,
time for you
and what
guys
is
to
the
go back.
current rate that they're getting.
So I can put it in my
Percentage,
schedule
2.5%,
and plan
whatever
on
the
it.
amount is, Put it there, cap it. Because if
5 days,
anything
usually
happens
5
that
days
goes above that,
before
then the
closing.
buyer could say, look, I don't qualify because the rate that I
Next
got
one.
at 2.75 is now 3.2, my monthly payments are gonna be higher. I'm pressing on my LTV, my loan to value, because I still have debt, and to
Okay,
try to
that
take on
sounds
this
good.
mortgage
That's
with
all
this
for
higher
today.
interest, I can't afford it. So the buyer can back out of it. Y'all with it?
Abby, the Abby. Yes. The-
Well, I'm talking in general, meaning that even if it's a
I sent you a
variable rate,
new
you wanna
form
know what is the
yesterday
highest
with
variable,
everything.
that if it maxes out and
Yeah,
the buyer
because you
can
never
still
signed
qualify with that.
So I send you a
interest
new
rate,
package. I
that's
send
the
you a new
amount. If
package.
it
Send,
exceeds
sign
that,
the new
that
one.
the buyer has the right to back out, no questions. The rate change, I put it in writing, there's nothing the seller can
Yeah,
do.
that would be great. And then did you receive the
Little
email
tricks
with
like
the home
When
warranty?
you leave it open,
I send
and now
that
you
to
say,
you.
oh my gosh, the rate went up by a quarter of a point. Oh, too bad.
Okay,
They
let me send it
emphasize
to
it
you.
on
Okay,
this.
I didn't send
Put
it.
it in the contract.
I was waiting for Dana to confirm. Okay, I send it to you right now. Okay,
Yeah,
thank
fixed
you.
rate or initial adjustable rate, not to exceed. So meaning that wherever your cap is, that's where you want to put it. Anything above that, the buyer has the right to cancel.
Even your fixed rate slow.
Thank you, assistant number one. All right, any questions? And obviously on the right, conventional, FHA, or seller finance. Now, guess what, folks? There's gonna be a lot of creative ways to purchase properties. I did this just recently on an apartment complex out in Marietta, 4 units. I submitted an offer. The property was $1.2 million, okay? $1.2 million. And it was an old book that I started reading about creative financing, leveraging yourself. So I said, wow, this book is like 30-something years old, but it still had like what we call magic formula on seller carrybacks. And I totally forgot about it. And I know the contract has it where it says seller financing. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna jab at this and see if I can buy a property with no money. I mean, wait a minute, no money, what are you talking about? I qualify for a loan, but I don't want to utilize my down payment of 25%. Because when you're buying an investment property, 25, 30% is your down payment. So I submitted an offer on a fourplex that's generating about $75,000 of rental income. Their expenses are about $15,000, all tenants in place. Beautiful complex, probably 25-year-old complex. The current owner has renovated all the units, AC, all have separate gas meters, electric meters. The only thing that the owner pays is the water and the trash, but it is just a great investment. I don't want to put 25%. So what I did was I submitted an offer. I said, I'm willing to give the seller 1.2 million of what they're asking. The property is on the market now for 55 days. Okay, so I have a little bit of leverage. I could probably negotiate, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna utilize the seller for this purpose. So I submitted an offer with a first deed of trust, okay, that I've been approved, but I'm also leveraging the seller to do a carryback of the 25%. The down payment that should be coming out of my pocket, I'm having the seller pay for me. Y'all with me? Now I'm financing the seller. He's gonna pay into dropping the balance, but I'm gonna carry that note on the back end, amortize for 30 years, okay, payable in 5, and I'm negotiating a 1% seller carry. I just threw it out there to see what happens.
1% interest?
1%.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So that's what I did. My first rate on my first deed of trust is 3.25, I think. Now the beauty is that if you understand the dynamics of it, 70% of the income can be utilized to qualify for the loan. 75, thank you, 75%. On top of my salary and sales and all that good stuff. So I utilize the leverage of the salary, the leverage of the income to qualify this. I'm going basically, and then the commission, obviously I can work something out because I'm getting a commission of 3%. That could go towards the closing costs. Y'all with me? So I'm walking in, no cash. You see where I'm going with this? Okay, so I submitted the offer. The listing agent responded back, thank you for your offer. I will present it salary. So I waited 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, I get a response. You know, the seller really considered your offer, but that's not the direction that the seller wants. He wants to cash out and ultimately take the entire net proceeds on it. But I will
Can I
keep your
speak with
offer
David?
if the seller ever changes.
Yes, I want to know if
So
you
I
guys
threw
have
it
the
in
NHD
hopes
for the
that
property.
maybe I
in,
can make it
let me just
stick.
tell you what is the
Now
property.
you
It's
just own a real estate portfolio.
It's 2120894.
All with me on this? With the beauty of seller carrybacks. And I'll be teaching you class, I should be teaching you guys dynamic ways because I bought properties that way. Okay, I own real estate in Bullhead City. You guys know where Bullhead City is? Yeah. Bullhead City, yeah. I own 12 units out there. Almost paid off. I don't make a lot of money on the rent, but that's my retirement money. You all with me? Okay. You get into real estate because when you're ready to retire or leave the industry, you want to have some passive income coming your way. This is why it's very important to understand the leverage that you have, the power that you have of being a good agent, because we preach you, right? Go out and close deals so you can get the money and buy investment properties. You should. Buy one, buy two, buy as many as you want. Okay, power of leverage. Questions? Yes, sir.
So the first 5 years of payments went towards paying off that, pay back that salary.
Amortized 30 years, payable in 5. You're refinancing the property. So basically, you're going to pay off the remaining balance of that amount 5 years from now. Maybe it's $60,000 as an example. Then you refinance and hope that there's some value. Rental income has to increase, and now you can refinance and merge the two. You're going to have a bigger loan, but then you don't have a second anymore. You only have one loan. One loan. And who's paying the obligation? Your tenants are. You're just managing. That's your business. Manage the property, collect the rents, make sure that the property is maintained, right? Make sure, like a vehicle, right? You drive the vehicle, you want to maintain it's the same elements as well. Okay. Sorry that I went off track on that, but I thought that was important. All right. Any questions regarding additional finance? We're good. All right. Section E3 talks about occupancy, right? No difference. Is this your primary, or is this your secondary, or is this an investment? Very, very important, folks. Trust me when I say this, is I see a lot of people take a little bit of shortcuts. What did I say earlier?
Don't do shortcuts.
Do not take shortcuts, okay? And if your buyers are doing something, don't tell me. You're committing fraud. Be very, very careful, because if you get entangled and you know, and it's committing fraud, it's going to come back to bite you some way, somehow. If you know that your client is buying this as an investment, but they're submitting it as a primary because they want the lower interest rates, be very careful. Work with integrity, work with ethics, and say, look, I understand that. I don't want to be put in this liability. Sometimes it's really hard, folks. I get it. But the buyer has to do the right thing. If it is a primary residence, then be it. If it's a second home, like a vacation home, then be it. If it's an investment, because all those are different interest rates. Okay. If I want to buy it as a primary, my rate is going to be this. If I want to buy it as a vacation home, it's going to be this. If I'm buying it as an investment, it's going to be this. It goes higher, higher, higher.
And what does the buyer want to do? Want to lower their monthly payment, and I get it. But this is why they put it on the contract, so it enforces the position. Okay?
In case that somebody's, that they are going to start business and they put it, they're gonna live in there, and something happen in the future. We are not-
Yeah,
We are not,
I mean, to me,
we are not liable.
here's a common practice that I can see. The buyer submits an offer with the intent to occupy the property. We close the deal. The buyer moves in, stays there for 24 hours. You know what? I changed my mind. I don't want to live here. I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna rent it out. All right, the intent was there. And then ultimately, the decision was not to go stay there. Okay? I don't see that as a wrong thing because that can happen, right? How many people buy properties and then ultimately want to sell the property? Like, oh crap, I just bought in a bad neighborhood. I should have came in at night and realized all these people party at night. That's why you do your due diligence, folks. And you urge your clients to do so. Okay? Can it happen? Absolutely. But just don't get entangled in that, because if something happens, they red flag it, they want to investigate, they're going to bring you in because you're licensed. They're going to look at the contract. Oh, Simon with Keller Williams, let's talk to him. Did he know what's going on? Ouch. Be very careful, folks.
Come back to bite you.
100%. Anyone need to take a quick little break? All right, let's take a 5-minute break, guys. 5-minute break. Thank you.
Yeah, do you know what this is? No, I'm saying sure. Right, because the primary, you have your primary, but then if you have a rental, then it's a different. This is all very encouraging. I'm not gonna lie, I can't wait to really get going.
Oh, you guys did such a good job at crashing that window.
I thought I put a sign. Well, it's because we used to have a door, remember?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I wasn't one, it wasn't even.
Sorry, sorry.
Beautiful job.
I am so sorry. How you doing?
No, it's great, it's great. So I tried something associations RPA class.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Half an hour in, I'm like, I'm doing on Zoom, so you're just sitting there going,
Yeah.
okay. Taking notes.
I know.
So, yeah.
Good, I'm glad. Some people like it, some people really get to the facts.
Yeah, no, you're a great story, you need entertainment.
Anytime you were driving, you're sleep, stand up, recruit, Cassius.
Yeah.
And then I'll try to go in the back and stand. That's regardless. Maybe I'll do this.
I have still news for you. Smart customers. I know.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was gonna, I knew he was gonna take advantage, so she didn't tell me. She said, "Oh, cool. I know. He's beyond it. You will, open house, he's at the.
Okay.
Yes, if he's not on call, I'm just getting calls, he's got nothing.
I'm gonna text you.
Right here. Yeah, but I couldn't read that. I couldn't read that, but I looked. You wait. And trust, sorry. Okay. But the woman does.
All right. All right, team. Welcome back. All right, folks, it's 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock. I got an hour left, okay, to get through all the material. All right, so we're going to limit a lot of the questions just so I can get through the content of this, okay? I'll be around. I think I do have a 3:30 or 4 o'clock appointment, or recruiting appointment, but if you have any questions, write them down, just so that way I can get through the flow of it. Otherwise, we'll be here till 6 o'clock, okay? And I know you don't want to see this face for another 3 hours. Happy hour. Okay? You definitely don't want to see this face for 3 more hours, okay? So we're all good with that?
Yes.
Okay. By the way, you guys are all awesome. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for devoting time on a Friday to come in and do this with me. You know, I'm so excited, so what's the word? Just full of joy, because it's been almost 2 years, folks, that we really physically had this many people in the training room. So God bless you guys. Thank you. And let's crush it. You know, we have a couple more months to the end of the year, and my goal is to close the year strong, and so that way we can start 2022. Okay, you all with me?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Yes.
I still can't hear you.
Yes.
Sometimes when you speak loud, the blood flow, and it kind of wakes you up a little bit. I was sharing with Sophia back when I was going through the academy. That was when I was lean and handsome. And if we were falling asleep, even if we're getting like a half day, the TAC officers would get to your face and just stare at you. Everyone was like chuckling, laughing, like trying to, and then you would open your eye and you got this body right in front of you. Recruit, get your up, and had us go in the back, and then we had to stand at attention. Yeah. And now, if you want to fall asleep, you're gonna fall and bust your nose. That's what we wanted to see. I'm not saying that that's what we're doing, okay? But you know, if you do need to take a break, you know, through the hour, I'm perfectly fine, okay? We're all grown adults, okay, and I respect that. And if you have to take any calls, text messages, I completely understand as well, okay? So I will continue having these classes and engagements. You yeah, this is awesome, you know, so if I can get commitment like this, I'll do them more often, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, this is really important to rub elbows with some of your colleagues here. And more so is to get back that momentum that we lost for a year and a half, right?
Yep.
I know I got a little bit discouraged and it's like, man, oh man, this is gonna be tough. I'm a new team lead here. What the heck happened? So I commend each and every one of you. Thank you for your support. And let's close the year strong. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, so we're gonna continue to page 2 of the RPA. The first page obviously will give you the purchase price. When you do the calculations, the bottom should be the amount that your client is purchasing the property, okay? So I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So now let's go to page 2, which is again part of the grid, I should say, not the grind. The grid of the contract. This is all new, folks, okay? There's gonna be lots of questions. You know, I'm gonna be asking a lot of questions because even the instructor who was teaching it was this veteran. I think he probably had 48 years of experience. He was broker / attorney. And boy, oh boy, I could not name. He was drier than dry. You know, I felt like getting up and going to the back and just standing there and yeah, it was tough. So this is why I said, please don't, not to happen to me. So that's why I have to throw little jabs and kind of wake you guys up. So I hope it's okay. I hope I don't disrespect anyone because sometimes I may say a little bit of bullshit crap. You know, I want to keep it as fun, as entertaining as I possibly can. Okay. And I'm not charging you. Okay? I can charge you 25, and I'll make my money. Show me the money. More money, no money. So. All right, let's continue, folks. All right, so page number 2 of the 16 pages goes into paragraph G1 as a seller credit. So the cool thing is that everything has now been incorporated. So because some buyers have limited funds, those buyers often ask the sellers to give the buyer credit. Now, before on page 1 of the RPA, it would say, you know, seller financing. And it would have lines there. And that was where we typically would put the amount that we were asking the seller to contribute as credit to the buyer. Well, now that has been changed, and now where it says seller credit, if any, to buyer. And what is that amount? If it's a flat amount or a percentage amount above for calculations purposes, seller credit to be applied to closing costs or other. All new language in there, folks, okay? For the people that kind of understand the dynamics of this is cool stuff because it paints the picture very clear. There's no going around it like before. I would see and I would scratch my head like, I don't understand what this buyer agent is trying to accomplish here. Are they asking for credit? Are they asking, what are they asking for? So now they made it very simple. Why? Simple Simon. I want simplicity. I want easy. I want to be able to explain that to my clients. That's simple, guys. I don't want to be thinking it's like, did I say the right thing? Did I not say the right thing? I want to know, well, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, what it's saying here, are you asking for some type of concessions? You need some concessions. Maybe they're tight on money. They barely have enough for that 3.5% first-time home buyer, right? And they only have enough to buy the place, put down the down payment, but they need a little bit of assistance and help with closing costs. That's where this language comes into place. Y'all with me? Okay. Additional finance terms. They added that verbiage. Again, if you need extra stuff, there it is. That's where the blue is. You see all that? Yeah. Okay. Any questions? Yeah, they don't. But you can always add an addendum to the contract. But even I think what they're going to do with this is even if you type away on that additional finance, it'll create a supplement automatically. Okay, so it'll add the supplement to this purchase agreement. Okay, the next one is verification of all cash if sufficient, right? Attached to the offer within 3 days of acceptance, okay? If you got your clients that are submitting all cash, I want to make sure, is it all cash and do they have the means to do so? I want to see what's called proof of funds, right? What's proof of funds? Cashier's check, okay.
The money in the bank.
I've seen where someone actually has a cashier's check on a photo. Here's my proof of funds that I'm ready to close on this capital. Okay, that's proof of funds. They have the means. What other ways of providing proof of funds? Bank statements, okay. Pensions, I've seen statements of pensions too, that they have more than suffice to provide proof of funds. Okay, cool. Awesome. So that's where that section would go, is that the buyer within 3 days to verify on an all cash deal, right? All cash. Verification of down payment and closing costs attached in the offer 3 days after acceptance. So everything is 3 days, right? Now, is that business days or calendar days?
Calendar.
I'm gonna say business days.
Calendar.
I'm gonna say calendar days.
Otherwise it would say this.
Thank you, Sue. Assistant number 1. Okay. She is saying calendar days, and the answer is calendar days. Yes, yes, yes. Yep, it's calendar days, folks, meaning that from the time of acceptance, it doesn't matter if it's Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Columbus days, calendar days, You must provide. What if the buyer does not provide the sufficient proof of funds? What then?
Notice.
Thank you. Notice to perform needs to be drafted, submitted to the buyer's agent, and that starts the time of execution for the buyer to perform. And if the buyer does not perform, then ultimately the seller has the right to cancel. Yes. Okay, and then obviously the next one, verification of loan application. Everything is just so nice and clean, everything. Proof of funds, proof of down payment, and proof of loan application. So can a buyer submit an offer without being pre-qualified?
Yes. Yeah, but they won't get it.
Yo, they probably won't get it.
Right now, especially the way we're dealing with a seller's market, right? Yeah, you want to be proactive, all right? And ultimately you want to get your buyers qualified. But based on the contract, folks, it says that the buyer doesn't need to be pre-qualified. They can submit an offer and have 3 days to get a pre-qual letter. That's what it says. You're driving, you happen to see an open house, you drive and I want to check out this open house. You walk in, it's like, whoa, I love this place. I want to submit an offer. You have not been pre-qualified. The agent can submit the offer, or the buyer's agent can submit an offer, or the agent that's hosting the open house, if they're not working with someone, can also submit the offer without the pre-qual letter. Okay, that's what the contract says. Now, like Sue was saying, it's not common practice, especially here in the South Bay, right? Why? It's very competitive. You know, I don't want to waste time on someone that is just testing the waters. But can you submit an offer without being pre-qualified? The answer is yes, you can. Okay. All right, next section, final verification of condition. Wow, I love this. This is your VIP. Yeah, verification of, final verification of condition. My apologies. Yeah. So that used to be closer to the end of the RPA, just so they put it right back in the front of page 2. I love it. So it already it already defaults at 5 days. So 5 days prior to close of escrow, the buyer has the right to do what's called a final verification of overall condition. Now, what does that exactly mean?
Walkthrough.
Okay, yes, a walkthrough. All right, but what does that exactly mean, and why does the buyer have the right to do a final walkthrough?
There's repairs.
Okay, very good. Oh,
Done.
Make sure they left all the stuff they're supposed to leave.
But it's not a contingency to close the sale.
correct. You all get all cookies and Okay. If I had payday chocolates, I would, oh, here's your payday. 100%, that is correct. The purpose of the final verification is to make sure that the property is still in the same condition as when originally submitted the offer. Okay? That if there was any request of repairs, folks, that the seller has complied with those requests. And if not, you're gonna do the final verification, and that VP form, you're gonna address that if it hasn't been taken care of, so that way we don't close escrow. That's your stop sign. Stop, wait a minute, we're not closing, the seller has not completed the request that we agreed to, we're gonna extend the escrow until the seller takes care of this, or otherwise does something else. Y'all with me? Yes, ma'am.
So quick question on that. The property is being sold as is. Do you have a walkthrough? Does that serve the purpose?
That's a very good question. That also, and I don't know if even, I have to double check. But on the final verification, the form, the VP form, it also has where if the buyer chooses to waive the final walkthrough. So the buyer has the right to waive the final walkthrough. They don't have to. I encourage you to do so. Peace of mind, so there's no issues once they transfer the keys. It's for the buyer to do a final walkthrough. But also that form says if the buyer wants to waive the rights to do a final walkthrough, they have the right to do so. And there's a little section, a little box that says waiving the right for a final walkthrough. Okay? Any other questions?
Yes, this does not take the place of the VP though, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. You still do your BP. All right, assignment request. Basically what the assignment is if your buyer is assigning this to another party. Now, single family up to 4 units, these agreements are not assignable, okay? Meaning I, Simon, will assign it to someone else. That's what we call wholesaling. Have you ever heard of the word wholesaling?
Yes.
Okay, I buy it for this and I wholesale it for this. The end user buys it and closes the deal. I'm wholesaling, getting paid the difference, or assigning it to a corporation. I'm buying it as me, but then I'm transferring as an entity to my corporation. Per the contract, that cannot be assignable. But as long as the seller agrees to, and there's a form that allows the assignment to be in effect, if I decide 10 days into escrow, you know what, I'm not gonna buy it, I'm gonna assign it to someone else, maybe I don't have the means, or I just change my position, I know that there's value in this home, but I'm gonna assign it to someone else that can close the deal. As long as the seller is an agreement to it, then you can assign it, but it's not if the seller does not agree to that. All with me on that? Okay. All right, I'm sorry, it's just that these words and my eyes are just so bad now. All right, next ones are contingencies. Now, this is what I love about this new contract is all the contingencies I think are right here, smack in your face. You don't have to go look for them anymore. It's like right here. So loan contingency, guess what changed? Days of contingency removal. Guess what? The lenders are going to be freaking out.
2021.
Everything is.
Okay. What used to be 21 days for loan contingency, folks, now has reverted back to 17 days for loan contingency. Pressure is on the lenders.
And you can say 4.
Well, absolutely. You took the kill on me.
Sorry.
Assistant number 3 here. Okay. No, yeah. Everything. What did I say? We can bend, right? Yeah. The buyer can submit an offer with pushing that contingency to 21 days. Now, I stress this very much. Talk to your lender. We got Chris Rivera right here. Wait, Chris. Hey, Chris Rivera. Okay. He's gonna tell you if you can make it happen in 17 days, okay? Or wherever you utilize, or maybe your clients already have. Get with the lender and make sure, because now the contract defaults 17 days. So, and originally these contracts were 17 days. Then with all this CBP or whatever it's called, they said, well, you know, we got to add additional disclosures. That's why the lenders need an additional 3 days. That's why they pushed it to 21 days. I was like, why? So everything now is 17 days, okay? 17 days for loan contingency. Now on the right side, if you're not doing a loan contingency, you can check it off. You see that on the right on additional terms. I love that. Right there, right smack. Appraisal. Now, what I like about the appraisal aspect of it is you don't have to guess anymore. I'm going to explain this little verbiage here. So let me read it to you. Appraisal contingency based upon appraised value at a minimum of a purchase price, or you submit an offer for $1 million, okay? And you're like a little hesitant that, yeah, maybe it's not going to appraise. But this verbiage here, the buyer can now put is that, look, the buyer is willing to continue with this if it doesn't appraise at something a little less. So instead of trying to calculate, you know, how to write this, you know, that the buyer is willing to pay X amount above the appraised value, right? Let's say that the appraised value comes in at $950. Okay, we have a $50,000 discrepancy, right? Or 50 from $950 and $1 million. That's the appraised value, right? Now, if you have your contingency in place, it protects who? It protects the buyer 100%. Because now the buyer can leverage themselves to negotiate, saying, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, the appraised value did not come in, but because I have that appraisal contingency in place, I have some wiggle room to negotiate that. Now the seller could say, nope, I'm not going to negotiate. You made an offer $1 million. We're staying to that. And if you want this property, then you can buy it at $1 million. And if the buyer says, nope, I don't want to, the buyer has the right to cancel. But 3 things can happen here. The buyer, the seller can negotiate where the seller, right, can say, look, yeah, I know it's $950, but I'm not going to sell it to you for $950. I'm willing to go $10,000 below $1 million. So I'll sell it to you for $950. Even though it's $990, excuse me, $990. But and you know that the appraisal is $950, right? Again, what did I say earlier? We can bend the spirit of the contracts and be black and white. But there's opportunities for both the buyer and the seller to work it out. At the end of the day, remember what I said early on. It's not my property, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. It's not my property that I'm buying, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. This is yours. You tell me what you want me to do. Y'all with me? Yes. Okay. So now this awesome provision in here lays it out. Where now if the buyer says, look, I'm willing to buy this property, even if it doesn't appraise at $950 or $1 million, I'm willing to go and sacrifice and pay in the difference. If the appraised value comes in at $980, okay, what that says, if you put $980 there, is that the buyer is willing to put an additional $20,000 into escrow to make this work. You all with me? Yes. You don't need to write the additional verbiage anymore. So even though you're submitting an offer $1 million in hopes that it appraises at $1 million, am I spitting on you?
No. You're telling you're telling me that now? No, you're not. You're good. You're good.
I'm sorry.
There's no spitting.
No,
fine. There's no spitting. You're good.
I think we're good. I think.
Yeah.
All right.
I got windshield wipers.
You got those glasses.
Yeah, right.
Keeping it real, folks. Can't get any better than this. I mean, this is not on Zoom, so I can't So whatever happens, happens, folks, all right? You're in it until we sink. All right, so that's the cool thing about this new contract is that now the buyer can say, and you can have that conversation with the buyer. What that says is, look, I know you really, really want this property, you know, but we're kind of tight on that appraisal. And we have Mike here. Mike is a licensed appraisal. So if you want to pick his brain, he's a go-to guy. I'm always constantly picking his brain, okay? So again, utilize the resources that we have. Mike is a phenomenal, many, many years of experience, understands the elements of appraising homes. So what this does now is it tells the buyer is you're still in the game. So we don't have to go back and forth. If it appraises, fantastic. If it doesn't, here's the amount that I'm willing to take and put some more skin into the game. Y'all with me? Yes. Okay, that's what it means. Awesome. You don't have to be creative as, Simon, what language do we do if the buyer is willing to come in with a difference? All right, well, there it is. You just put, or if it comes in at 980, the buyer is willing to put up to 20,000. Now, if the property appraises at 970, what happens now? I can get out. Okay, yeah, the buyer, well, you got the options, right? If you have your appraisal contingency, you can negotiate. Look, I was willing to go in 20,000, where 10,000 is the seller willing to go up, or if the seller is willing to negotiate and meet somewhere in the middle, now from 20,000, 25, that the buyer and the seller is going to come up with 5,000 as well. Everything is all negotiable, okay? Everything is all negotiable. Okay? That's the cool thing about real estate. Okay, furniture can be negotiable, cars, boats, RVs. Hey, I bought a car one time. Instead of commission, I got a car out of it. Yes, sir.
You're gonna have to know this ahead of time, like, you're kind of guessing on what the appraisal's coming in at, how high you're willing to go if it doesn't appraise. Yeah, I answered my question. Sorry.
I lost you. Sorry.
It's all good.
You want to repeat it again, or?
No, that's fine.
He answered his own question.
I do that a lot. I do that a lot, so I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm a gladiator. All right, let's continue. So, all right, section, yes, Lee.
Very quick question. The appraisal comes in at $1,020,000. What happened?
The appraisal comes in at $1 million. Don't say it's a seller.
Don't tell the
You have equity on the property. Tell the seller, he can't do nothing about it. You got instant equity on the property.
That's it? Okay, good. Let's continue.
You got instant equity. It's great. I bought a property last year and out in Riverside County, and I went in there, bought it, and the appraisal, to my surprise, was 40,000 above what I paid for it in Riverside. Okay, am I gonna tell the seller and the listing agent? No, what am I gonna say?
He came to the right.
It appraised! It appraised! Simple, guys. Don't go divulging more than you need to. Zip it. The problem with real estate agents is you guys talk too much. You guys talk too much. Not you, not like Cal really needs. Those out there agents, all right? The agents outside of Keller Williams. Yourself out of sale. Yeah. Remember, the agents are the ones that ultimately kill their own deals.
Yeah.
Stop it. You want to get paid a commission, right? Zip it. Calla la boca. Calla la boca. For anyone, I'm going to translate. Shut up. In a nice way, folks. Nice way. Now, the cool thing is, when I was working at the previous company, 99% of the agents Latinos, and not Latinos like myself, but Spanish speaking people,
Like me.
like Jen. So I really had to fine tune my ability. Within 2 months, I mean, I was speaking like Latin like you couldn't believe. I'm ready to go anywhere in Mexico, Central America, and South America, baby. Parts of Europe too, because I can speak the language. Hablo español. ¿Cómo estás? Qué bonitos ojos. Me gusta tu sombría. Vamos a bailar.
Vale, vale.
I should get paid more money, folks. I'm a bilingual here. Okay? I'm a bilingual, I should get paid more money.
Probably don't get married though.
You need to hear.
In marriage counseling.
I made a mistake once. I made a mistake twice. Is Simon gonna make a mistake number 3? Find out. I believe in marriage. I believe in marriage.
Far away though. You believe, but far away.
I believe in marriage, so again. Will I do it again? Will I do it again?
Why not?
Okay. I'm gonna answer what the ladies want to hear. And I'm gonna also answer what the guys want to hear. I'm not gonna give you the answer. All right, let's continue, folks. We got 13 minutes. Shit.
You're in phase 2. Let me continue.
Where are we? I don't know what's
Phase 2.
appraisal, investigation of property. All right, so also on the original RPA, the current one, there is language that says investigation of property. So what it means is, let's just say, for example, that the buyer submits an offer, releases all contingencies, everything, loan, appraisal, inspections, and disclosures, if there's an HOA. Any and all contingencies are removed. What this investigation of property stipulates is that regardless if I release everything, the buyer still has the right to do their due diligence on the property. Meaning they have 17 days to go into the property, do as many, well, wait a minute, you released all inspections. We're not allowing you to go into the property. No, that's not what it says. The contract says it allows the buyer to do whatever they need to know to determine what the property overall condition is. And the buyer has 17 days to do so. That's what the contract says. So the investigation period is defaulted at 17. Now, the buyer can say, I don't need 17 days, I'll do it in 7 days. Okay. Or the listing agent can say on the counter saying, look, I know you can do investigations, but I'm not going to do it in 17 days. I'm going to do it in, have the buyer do it in 10 days. Y'all with me? Okay.
So this is their out.
No, it's not the route. If the buyer releases all contingencies, okay, and decides to cancel, they can cancel, but now you're jeopardizing their deposit. Liquidated damages, the seller can go after that deposit. The buyer can cancel, yeah, no problem, but now your money stays in escrow and eventually can be transferred to the seller. Yes, Rosie.
Question. If I see this one as a listing area on L2 and it says no appraisal contingency, but it says for FHA VA loans, removal of appraisal contingency does not eliminate appraisal cancellation right on SDLT.
Yeah.
So this means
Okay,
that there's still.
assistant number 3 here is saying, absolutely 100%. When it's a government loan, okay, how you protect your client is because you may have the intention, you as meaning the buyer may have the intention that they want to release the contingency, but to protect the buyer from a government loan, FHA VA loan, which is a government loan, they have to provide you with the FBAC form. And if it doesn't appraise, the buyer can back out of the deal, even though he or she or they have released appraisal contingency. That's the reinforcement. But if you do not check that, then unfortunately, shame on your agent and shame on the buyer. That's only if it's an FHA or VA. If it's a conventional or at all cash, it doesn't matter. But that's how you protect the buyer. And on that form, hold that one thought, Jim. On that form, you gotta specify the amount that they're making an offer. So if they're making an offer of 700, then that FA, because I get this question asked all the time. What do we put there on that? Put the price that you submit the offer at. If it's 700, 700. If it doesn't appraise at 700, the buyer can back out of the deal or negotiate and move on. Yes, sir.
Since they categorize all contracts, I'm a big contract guy, all right. Or is the company going to require that we address each box? Like before on the other RPA, you would just leave it blank, for 3 days or 4 days for contingency removal. Or if it doesn't apply, are they gonna wanna see an NA? Because when you start boxing, categorizing that, the law changes, believe me, because it's categorized as J, paragraph J, number 16, paragraph K, number 29. And people, let me tell you right now what's gonna happen. You gotta learn this RPA because your counteroffers from experienced brokers like me are gonna say, delete page 2, J16, this, they're not gonna tell you what it is. They're just gonna give you letters and numbers. Specifying the paragraphs, not say, hey, contingencies instead of 10 days, or they'll say delete paragraph so-and-so. You understand what I'm saying? They're gonna address the paragraphs and not the verbiage. So, I mean, they do that now on some RPAs, delete paragraph, like, if you have like item 19C is termite report, they'll say, in their counteroffer, say delete 19C in its entirety, so there's no termite report. But this looks like to me the way they categorize this, and I'm late coming in here, I'm sorry I was busy today, but when they start paragraphing and itemizing the boxes, and I think that's why the legal department of the CAR has done this, now we have to address every single item on the contract. I think we have to either put an NA or address something on, we just can't leave it blank because then it's not filled out. So I'm not sure about that. We'd have to ask legal somebody from the CAR who will probably do, who does the contracts, Bill Hutchinson?
Their legal team.
Well, they said they're gonna do a seminar.
I got a better answer to that. I have a better answer to that.
I'm just wondering.
Yeah, but I got an answer for that. I can tell you what the answer is. By the way, Jim is my substitute. He's gonna come in next and teach the rest of the RPA. So here's the answer to your question. I get it. I hear you loud and clear. If you look at the far right, it says removal, waiver of contingency. You see all that? Okay. Just like Jim was saying, 100%. Now you've got to categorize if you are going to release, and it's the responsibility of either the buyer's agent or the listing agent, and more so the listing agent. If you're good, you're going to catch it, and then you're going to intercept it, and you're going to send out the CR as part of the counteroffer that you've got to reinforce it. Because if the buyer is checking off as removing that immediately, you reinforce it with the CR form. Okay, contingency removal. Because I don't want to go back and forth and battle. Well, he said, she said, they said. Going back to the contract of what I said earlier, the black and white. Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, you release contingency. Here's the CR signed, stamped, and delivered that you release this as a condition. There you go. But I will still ask legal, just in case.
I just, I mean, this, I think this is a good, I think this is a better contract because
100%.
I think it's for first-time buyers.
100%.
When they see a bunch of paragraphs and not categorized.
And it's not for the new agents that I'm worried, it's the old timers that I'm worried. This one is definitely going to help because the old timers, I just think that they know how to write these contracts. So the newer agents are by compliance. I don't have a problem. It's the older generation that I can do this, I can do that. So I think this is a great, thank you, Jim. This definitely is a better RPA in my opinion. My opinion only, and this is just my opinion, but I think they're doing this great. Now, with that, it's gonna have a lot of confusion too. I already see that happening because there's a lot of content. It's a lot of meat on this bone. But the more we do, the better. I remember in 2017, when they drastically changed the RPA, they removed the whip test verbiage, the termite inspections out of the purchase agreement, and now they utilize that as a request of repairs. It threw off a lot of people, and it threw me off. It's like, what the heck? But the more we did, the better we got.
I started with one page, so you can see how confused I
Now you're talking to an old time. I thought I was bad with 5.
am. You have to write everything in. It was like a blank page. It looked like an addendum. That's what it looked like. It looked like a blank addendum.
Yeah, and most of the stuff you had a handwrite, right? It was like 1 or 2 pages, and the rest was all handwritten. Yeah, I get it. Yeah. Now, those were considered, you guys were professionals. I have a hard time writing. And punctuation and grammar, and it's like.
I was surprised you didn't know we got super lot.
Yeah. You guys did practice like law back in the days.
I think what Jim's concern is that leaving it blank on the number of days, that somebody else could go fill something else in, so.
No, because it's already marked there as 17 days.
Or what if somebody comes along and puts in something different?
Well, yes, I get it, but who's gonna be that someone else? No, see. No, it doesn't work that way. You submit an offer, you're gonna see that the buyer and the buyer's agent either put 17 or more. And if you see something crazy like that, I would counter it off. So I don't think it's gonna be a problem. Because everything, because if you do change the 17 days, then it's gonna allow you to, on your zip forms, to put less 10 days, and then you'll see the difference. And usually the zip forms colors it for you too, where it puts it in blue. So it also will show that. Question, David.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, you said a lot of things, you just want to make it very short and clarify. So what you're saying is that L1 through L7, correct? Which is loans and investigation and prompting and all that. Whatever you do here, it has to be reaffirmed with the CR, correct?
Yes, sir.
So just specifically saying that these items, L1, L2, L3, this, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so if you don't do anything, it'll default to the 17 days. 17 appraisal, 17 loans, 17 investigation, 17 information access to the property, 17 days review of seller disclosure, 17 days for preliminary title report, 17 days for common interest disclosure, 17 days review of lease or lease items on the property. Okay, and then it goes down to sale of buyer's property. Sale of buyer's property is not contingent unless checked. So if it is in corporate, then you're going to check out the COP form, all right? So if you've been in a situation where your buyers are wanting to buy a new property but need the proceeds of the sale of their current home, then you're going to check off that the COP is attached, is incorporate to the RPA. You all with me? Okay, so that means, let's say you represent the buyer on their sale, so you're the listing agent on that sale. So now it'll incorporate the COP, and now it's a different form, and then now you're giving specifics, because again, a lot of listing agents will not take on a buyer if there's a COP in place, especially right now on a hot market. If they can avoid a buyer that's contingent, they'd rather go with someone that's non-contingent. You all with me?
Yes.
Okay, but not saying that the COP client or buyer is not a good buyer.
Right.
It may be the only offer you have, then you have no choice. You see where I'm going with this? So that's the difference. Okay. Like I said, I'm 3 hours into this and we're barely on second page. You know, I might have to do a second, class in this. But I promise you, I won't talk to jargon. I know. But this is really the core of it. The rest of the stuff is pretty similar, so. All right, next is on time of possession, time for performance in additional terms, which is currently not blank, but upon notice of recordation or 6 p.m. So basically, when do you want the property in possession? Do you want it at time of close? Or are you asking for an additional time? If it is, then you're going to do the TOP, A. Time of possession addendum, I think it's called, yeah. So if that's the case, I love this, is that it has the days of COE, which stands for close of escrow, 29 days or fewer, and you're going to use a specific, which is the SIP form, the seller in possession. Now, remember, if you were on a team meeting on Wednesday, the attorney was saying, do not put up any rental agreements with sellers in possession, because now they can contribute and say, well, I'm a tenant. I'm the seller that sold me the property. I pulled all the money on the sale, but now I'm a tenant and living on my own property. Do not, if you can avoid the rental because of the eviction moratorium, folks, this could be a tenant landlord situation. And we don't want to be in that predicament. Y'all with me on that?
Yeah. So now, because we have a lot of offers that we put the seller wants rent back.
Yeah.
And remain in possession, then how we're gonna do it.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. So I get it, and a lot of what Rosie is saying is, and we're seeing this quite often, is that a lot of sellers and buyers are putting things into play that, you know, extend this 21 day. All I'm saying is, yeah, I get what you're saying. If you have to give a 60-day seller in possession, just do not do a listing agreement. Okay. Huh? A lease agreement, month-to-month agreement. Don't do, what did I say? A tenant? Yeah, thank you. It must be that time already. It's Friday, right? Happy hour. By the way, tomorrow 9 o'clock, we're doing a Redondo Beach walk. So if anyone would love to be part of it, I think I'm going to be there. Depends on how much more left I have on this.
You should do a part 2 somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. All right, so then it has where the seller in possession can also input, and I love how it's worded here. It has for 21 or fewer days, such as your SIP, and then it has 30 days or more. But if you look at the far right, it says form CIP attaches for 29 or fewer days, or the RLAS, which is the residential listing agreement. That's what lease agreement, thank you, lease agreement. That's the one you want to avoid. Even though you're giving more than 30 days, don't have the seller sign that, because now they can use that as arsenal that we're tenants. And with the eviction moratorium, that's where it could cause some issues. Let them stay there as part of the agreement, but do not have them draft a lease agreement in place. Y'all with me? Okay. Let's continue. All right, tenant occupied unit. If there's a tenant in place, then obviously the buyer would check off on that. And then obviously the TOPA, the tenant occupying property addendum. Documents, fees. This is really like on the second page of the current RPA. Seller delivery of documents, still 7 days. So as a listing agent, your goal and your job is to provide all the seller disclosures to the buyer within seven days. Is that business days or calendar days? Calendar days. We accept the offer today, okay? Me and Ray right here, right smack in the middle. So me and Ray, I'm the listing agent, Ray is the buyer's agent. Him and his buyer, him and my clients come to an agreement today. We execute the purchase agreement, signed everything. What is today considered? 0 days of a 30-day, of a 17-day, of a 7-day contingency. Okay. Every day that it's an executed day is mutual acceptance or disclosure. That day is considered 0 days. So your first day of this 30-day process will be tomorrow, Saturday, calendar days. Now, the contract currently says that if a contingency falls on the weekend and holiday, it automatically reverts to the next business day. But rumors say, and I'm not sure right this minute, but the rumor is that contingencies on the new RPA is going to be calendar days to release contingencies. Meaning, currently, if it falls on the weekend or holiday, it reverts to the next business days. But now they're saying, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they're saying if it falls with a new RPA, if it falls on a Saturday or even holiday, the buyer must release that as a contingency. So it's like, you're not gonna have that extra time. Now, how you protect your buyer is on the purchase agreement, you're gonna extend those contingencies, but right here, 17 days, say 21 days, 20 days, whatever. That gives you the time. Now the seller can come back and say, no, I want to stick to the contract. We're gonna go back to the 17 days. Yes, sir.
Also, people, let's say, they say, hey, my seller has been sick, he can't get the contract, he needs extension on contingencies. If your buyer agrees or your seller agrees to it, you must put that in writing. If you don't have it in writing, you let the 7 days go again, and they want another extension, it's automatically extended by law. Because you're not gonna have if it goes to an attorney, I'm just gonna tell you what happens. If it goes to an attorney, they're gonna say, no, you need it in writing to begin. The contract is only valid when it's in writing, a bilateral contract. So if they give you a verbal statement and you don't send an email, no text, email.
Right.
Send an email verifying everything, so you have proof of what you did. Then they can automatically extend it again. So just keep that in mind.
Right, 100%. Thank you. Okay. All right, guys, 10 minutes left, okay? 10 minutes.
14 more pages to go.
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
You got your work cut out for you.
99 follow
To be continued.
Yeah. I hope I answered some.
Yeah.
You know, the first.
I honestly thought we can get through the entire RPA in 3 hours. I guess I was wrong. But then again, I talked a lot of bullshit too. Sorry.
No comments.
But we'll have another class if need be, okay? All right, let's continue, guys, because I only have 10 more. Question?
Yeah. Is that?
All right, so possession, time of possession, seller occupied, tenant occupied units. Now let's go into documents and fees, seller delivery of documents, 7 days. General return escrow holder, general provision, supplement instructions. So what's interesting here is this 5 days after receipt. So meaning that once escrow received, and again, escrow starts when, the buyer and seller mutually agree to the execution of the RPA. But what it says here, and what I read is, let's say that the escrow instructions is not 3-4 days after, then that's when the 5-day provision starts. Y'all with me on that? It's not like, oh my God, they need to turn it in, within 5 days of acceptance. It's from the time escrow signs and returns, sign and return escrow holder general provision supplement instructions within 5 days. A lot of jargon, a lot of stuff. Now, remember, everything can be banned on this, but I'm just telling you the black and white of what the contract says. Time to pay fees for orders of HOA, again, 3 days. Install smoke detectors. You guys all understand. Next page, please. All right, section P is in Paul, items included and excluded. So here is pretty interesting because now it has itemized items of specifications here that if the property is including any of these, or the buyer is wanting included as part of the agreement, then the buyer will check off stove, refrigerator, wine refrigerator, washer, dryer, dishwasher, microwave. So they got really specific and they really just dissected a lot of the information. It's on the original purchase agreement now, but they put it all together. Video, doorbell, security cameras, I mean, you can see the list not. So if anything the buyer is requesting, then they're gonna check if it's not in those little boxes, then you can add it as additional instructions or additional items. Y'all with me on that? If they want the pet dog, but we want Hershey the dog. Hey,
Bathrooms, is that a mistake? Or-
Say,
I might print it when somebody checked bathrooms, is that just a mistake or is that?
No.
Bathroom there, you didn't check that.
I think it was one that got by accident checked. I don't know.
Not really, because people assume the bathroom mirrors were attached, and then there's people that you just
Custom.
hang the mirrors,
Yeah.
and so I guess it's an attached item.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting when this gets rolled out of all the disputes we're gonna have. So even like electric car charger systems, like if any of you have Teslas, you know, well, it says if the buyer wants it as part of the agreement, then you check it off and it's all negotiable.
This is more distinctive for a buyer and seller to really grasp it, because it's itemized in each paragraph. It's
Exactly.
gonna be easier to say, hey, go back to page 3, paragraph P, one, and it tells you everything that you agreed to leave in the house. But all
Absolutely.
attached fixtures in a house are normally incorporated in the sale of any single family residence in the state of California.
Absolutely. Yep, 100%. Additional items including, as I mentioned, if you want that pet doggy or cat as part of the agreement, and you'll put there that you want the doggy. Okay, I don't encourage you, but I'm saying, you know, you could add additional. Or if you want that nice luxury car or RV or whatever the case may be, you can put that as a negotiation aspect of it. Item P29, excluded items. Again, if there's anything that the buyer doesn't want, then you can ask that, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, at time of close or escrow, we don't want that. Whatever the case may be, I don't know. Whatever it is, then you'll put it on there. All right. The allocation of costs is pretty self-explanatory, like the original contract on page 2. It goes through natural hazards, smoke detectors, government retrofits, escrow fees, and no difference. It's just created a little different. Before it was like a buyer seller. Now it's just done a little bit as part of this grid. So everything is pretty much the same. It's just kind of condensed in a different parameter or format. Thank you very much. Escrow fees, buyer, seller, both each to pay their own fees. So you don't have to add. Remember, we used to each to pay their own. Bam, it's already on there. CARD is getting smart now, and they're listening to their realtors that are paying all this money to them. Okay, yeah,
That's true.
it's about time. Thank you, Sue. Owner title, buyer, lenders, title insurance, county, city, HOA, prior transfers. I mean, you guys understand. Other terms on the very bottom, again, if you have any additional terms, say you're buying your own investment property or buying your primary home, you need to disclose, hey, I'm a licensed by the state of California, but I'm buying this as my principal property, something to that nature. Any questions? Any questions?
No.
Any questions? Any questions? Thank you. I feel like I'm only talking to one person. There's 100 people in here. I love you guys. Okay? I really do. I really do. So. All right, next page goes into basically, it kind of goes down back to the original stuff. So property agenda and advisories. What I like about this is now it goes into the meat and potatoes of what type of offer. Okay, is it a probate agreement addendum that you're including manufactured, tenant occupied property addendum? It's the TOPA, tenant and common purchase addendum, stock. We don't deal with that. That's up more up north if you're like selling land and all that stuff. But I don't know why they incorporate this on here. The stock.
What if it's a regular sale?
Long Beach? Yeah, Long Beach. Thank you. Say again.
What if it's a standard sale?
Then it's you don't check any of them. Yeah. Other addendums to this, the agreement is subject to the terms and contained in this addendum. So again, similar to what we see, the addendum, the backup offer addendum, the septic tank, short sales, court confirmation, buyer intends to exchange your 1031s. I love it because it lays it all out.
Yeah.
So you don't have to guess, what form do I need? Follow the contract. And it'll tell you. But what changes the buyer intent to exchange addendum, that's your 1031s.
Yeah.
Your 1031s, what they call it now, BXA. I remember BMX.
I see a flaw.
That's a ten.
I see tons of
I
flaws.
see a flaw. There's no trust sale in here. There's probate, but there's no trust.
Well, you
I
can
think
put
there
order.
is. There is.
Okay.
So you can just
Put
put
it
it
under other.
This form is not set in stone yet. There's still gonna be a lot of revisions on it. This is revision 20,
Down here at the bottom.
okay, but there is language in there of trust. I think.
Bottom,
place.
number 6, trust.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
We put it in the next one.
All right, so the next is section B, buyer and seller advisory. Buyer inspection advisory, buyer fraud is already checked. These already defaulted as part of the agreement, fair housing, which is already part of it. And the consumer privacy and act advisory statewide, most of those will be provided by the sellers. Additional terms affecting the purchase. Now, what I want you to really look and stress is everything that is in red. You guys see the red stuff on there?
Yeah.
This is added to the RPA. Everything else has already been incorporated into the RPA with the current one. It's just changed. It's like putting a new face on it. But the information is still the same. Anything that's on red or blue has either been modified or been added to the contract. Y'all with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the deposit, initial deposit, buyer shall deliver deposit directly to escrow if a method other than wire transfer is specified in paragraph 3.1 and such method is unacceptable to escrow holder, then upon notice from escrow holder, delivery shall be by wire transfer. Why they added that is beyond me, but it's on there as well. Typically, mostly buyers will submit the deposit electronically, okay? But if they want to go in there and hand a briefcase for 100,000 to put in good faith, then that's the buyer, or a check or money order. Okay, the rest of the stuff is pretty self-explanatory. Increased deposit retention has been included. Paragraph 29 is additional by all parties otherwise incorporated into this agreement, specifying remedies to buyer default. Buyer and seller are advised to consult with qualified California what? Real estate attorneys before adding any other clause specified in remedies such as release or forfeit of deposit, making a deposit non-refundable. Okay, so any of that language is not prohibited. Did I say that? We don't want to alter these contracts, okay? The California Association of Realtors works hours and hours to create these contracts to protect not just the buyers, not just the sellers, but also the real estate professionals. So when you start altering like Lee, like to alter on his contracts, then you're putting yourself in liability. Okay, we don't practice law, right? We're not attorneys. Only if you're an attorney, then by all means, but then it's on you. Or in taxation either. We don't give taxation advice. We only sell real estate. Don't make it complicated, folks. When you make it complicated, then it's hard to backtrack and get yourself out of that deep hole you put yourself into. Always ask for advice and always speak with your broker. Who's your broker? Who's you? Who's your broker?
Simon.
Again, who's your broker?
Simon.
Yes. I'm currently your broker, so remember, you're not just jeopardizing yourself, but you're also jeopardizing your license.
Simon.
Okay, I'll defend you, but I will not go and do something crazy,
You don't go to
okay?
jail
Because
for us?
I don't want, I don't want to go to jail.
The wire fraud, are they gonna add that page on here? or-
It's on here,
The what?
the wire fraud, it's in there.
It's already
We-
there.
we-
Part of it, what,
It's
yes,
It just says the box, says wire fraud, it doesn't show the advisory though.
it'll be there.
It's on there. I remember talking about it, but it'll be in there.
It's in the pages
Yeah,
on the 16. I looked at.
No, it should be at the back.
it's on this page right here where it says check wire fraud advisory, page 4C. 4C, wire fraud.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I know.
That's the form.
No. The form will, see how it's checked?
Yeah.
It's gonna populate that form
Like
too.
it does now, Jim.
So it's gonna do the same thing that it did before. Anything you check, it's gonna populate it and incorporate it with the offer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I understand.
okay.
I'm just saying what's
Anything you
missing.
check.
What are you
Don't-
thinking? What is
don't-
it?
checked.
Jim, don't get me nervous here, my friend. I'm nervous.
No, I look for flaws.
All right, I'll tell you what. It's 3:00, folks. And we are on page 4 of the RPA. It is Friday and I want to respect your time. So we can do one or two things. Okay, I'm gonna leave it up to you. And the majority will win. We could stop now and then we can circle back on a later date and we'll start where we left off. Okay, and I'll make sure, because you already know most of my jargon, I'm gonna go right into the contracts and nothing about Simon and his excess. Okay. Or dating, okay? Or we can battle another 30 more minutes, but I can't promise you that we're gonna finish because I do have another appointment coming in over here. I prefer to stop and take a break. It is Friday, and then I'll put it on the calendar and make sure, and you know, just look for the calendar, and we'll do part 2 of the RPA.
Nice.
Yeah.
Part two.
Lunch will be provided, guys, don't worry, I'll feed your little tummies. Okay? By the way, the affiliate was Simon, so you can take Simon to the picture. All right, cool, awesome, guys, well, thank you, I really appreciate all of you guys. Stop to conclude on the next RPA, it'll be RPA part 2.
And what we're gonna do is remind us to sign over here. It says spitting section.
Yeah, the contract was so tight. I must call this attorney. Call our, the Take care. Yeah, you gotta watch out when I write a contract, I sealed it up. Fixed it up, couldn't get out of it. Yeah, sorry, like. You have to go with this. Everything's gonna automatically, so what you check yet, it's gonna have the form right there. It's gonna pop it up. Your agency, your possible representative, your fire. So they're on the document side, what you get that, it's going to add the form just like it does when it does FHA, right? It has to give a form. I see, well, that's a lot easier too, so they don't miss it. You gotta do it at least 2 or 3 processes. I'll help you. Yeah.
Yeah. What do we need to do on the MLS? We need to update it? You need to do what? So it's not active?
I sent you an email, I sent you a text.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're Yeah, I always mark it.
Es que estoy haciendo una, voy a mandar una pregunta
Good to see you, man. Take care. Great job, Simon.
So nice to meet you.
It's all good, all right? Yeah.
So what does it show right now in the MLS? There's nothing that shows. No, but on the MLS, does it show? Oh, you cannot. Okay, I'll get working on it. Just because I got something going on right now. Okay, but we'll get it resolved, okay?
Sí, que le otorga 2 opciones de 5 años cada uno. Pero en el lenguaje hay que ver
Sign it. Forms come down 12/1, they're gonna be mandatory by April, right?
No, they'll be in full effect December. This year.
Really?
Yeah.
Because usually they come out with new forms, they have a 4-month spread.
December will come out.
Oh, so then they're gonna start having all the classes now for these.
They already started. Yeah. They already started.
Yeah, it's full effect on 12/21, yeah.
Right.
So the other forms will be obsolete December 1st.
This is gonna be the new revised contract.
Yes, you won't be able to use the other contract.
Right.
Well, yeah, okay. So I thought it was gonna come out 12/1, then we have 4 months.
December is gonna come out.
Okay.
So I have Okay. And then did you look at your Facebook
Simon, ¿tienes un minuto nomás una pregunta? What, okay, Brian's not here. So, want me to put, but she has to sell her product in Miami, Florida. She's gonna have to
You're making an offer. So, what's your pleasure? Is the property over there?
No, it's still gonna shine at the end.
Okay, so what you're gonna farm it all up, but I was thinking.
So we're gonna.
Yeah.
Y puedo decir al dueño, desde antemano se hace, pero te la voy a dar. Pero si está ahogando,
There's one, right? Every flight is gonna change.
y le digan a la persona, no tienes el derecho, tienes a mi esposo o alguien.
Why learn the tricks? Then I was quick here. I would sign a license and buyer. This is buyer.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then we're putting our house here in the market.
There's some.
All right, brother, thank you.
Okay.